Please stand for the Chair of Thanet District Council.
Good evening, councillors and officers of the council and members of the press and public. I welcome you to this meeting of the council. If the fire alarm is activated, please vacate the offices via the stairs, either through the security doors to my right or opposite the lifts in the foyer. Please do not use the lifts. Please assemble in Hawley Square on the green. Officers will assist you and advise when it is deemed safe to return to the chamber. I would advise that if filming takes place, anyone in attendance in the public areas may have their image captured. I urge anyone filming proceedings to avoid filming members of the public, particularly if there are children present. Does anyone intend to film the meeting? Okay. Any member of the public who objects to the possibility of being filmed may wish to take this opportunity to leave the meeting. Any filming or recording will not be permitted for any item of business where exempt or confidential information is considered, following the exclusion of the press and public from the meeting. This meeting is being recorded and live streamed on YouTube. Hello, viewers at home. Would everyone present please ensure that their mobile phones are turned to silent and then that they are not used to make or receive phone calls whilst the meeting is in progress. Speeding on to item 1, apologies for absence. I have received apologies from Councillors Dawson, Wing and Faruqi. Are there any more, please? Councillor Nichols, thank you.
And Councillor Patmore.
Councillor Patmore, any more, please? Thank you very much. Item 2, minutes of the previous meeting. I move that the minutes of the previous meeting of the Council held on the 10th of July 2025 be approved and signed as a correct record. Would the Vice Chair please second?
Seconded.
Do councillors agree? Thank you. I have no announcements. Item 4, where are we? 5. 4. Thank you. Item 4, declarations of interest. Are there any declarations of interest on this occasion? Councillor Fellows.
I declare an interest on item number 13.
Thank you. Hello, Councillor Wright. The same interest, item 13. Thank you. Anybody else? Thank you. Item 6, questions from the press and...
Item 5.
I'm speeding on here. It's been 3 months, I'm sorry. Here we go. Item 5, petitions. There are no new petitions that have been received in accordance with Council Procedure Rule number 12. Now, item 6 is questions from the press and public. One question has been received from the press and public in accordance with Council Procedure Rule number 13. A question from a member of the public regarding National Link and C-Link. I'm pleased to welcome Kerry Sabin Dawson. Kerry, where I come to the microphone, I believe you know where it is. And now please ask your question.
My question is to the Leader of the Council.
In the light of National Grid's update to the C-Link DCO application, in which they claim a further extension to the draft order limits at the hoverport in Pegwell Bay, can the Council please confirm that they're still opposed to this, having refused the use of this land for the C-Link proposal? Furthermore, if TDC's position on the use of the hoverport has changed, when was this discussed and agreed by councillors? Thank you.
Thank you. Kerry. Councillor Whitehead.
Thank you. Due to changes in the portfolios, I'll be responding because I'm now in planning. Our opinion has not changed. The Council's position, as outlined in our relevant representation submitted to the Planning Inspectorate, is that we are opposed to the use of the mud flats via the hoverport site. This has not changed with the increase in the order limits. Given that National Grid intends to use compulsory acquisition powers to allow access to the land for the purposes of the project, we are engaging directly with National Grid in relation to our concerns. Compulsory acquisition gives us little choice or agency as an authority, as it is a central process, and one that we cannot give permission for or against. It will be determined as part of the DCO. However, the Labour motion to Council clearly voiced our concerns around this proposal, as have our consultation responses. And as our Council response is already public, I'm happy to share parts of my personal response here, as it emphasises that the central approach we need to take to address the issues that lead to proposals for SSSIs coming forward in the first place. My response is as follows. The weight of the protection of significant sites is determined by the Secretary of State, not their designation alone, which in reality either leaves them without protection if applications are granted, or if applications are turned down, are protected only after a lengthy and expensive process, which not only causes significant distress and disruption to communities, but also increases cost and delays delivery of infrastructure projects when the protected nature of the land should already have made it clear that this is not a suitable site for development. This is not a sustainable or understandable situation. Our significant sites, including our SSSIs, need outright protection rather than consideration within the process. If they are not granted this by means of a central register or excluded land, then applications can and will come forward for completely unsuitable areas. And the result of this is either that highly significant and valuable areas will be lost if permission is granted, or that huge costs and delays are incurred relating to consulting on sites that should have been excluded from consideration at the very start of the process. Habitats and ecosystems that are already considered to be nationally significant should have the benefit of clear national protection. Anything else makes a mockery of the current systems of protection, and loss of unique habitat cannot be offset. Biodiversity net gain is at best a proportional measurement, and when considering loss of an entirely unique habitat, there is no way to replace that, and no way to mitigate effectively for its loss. The very point of SSSI recognition is to acknowledge rarity and the irreplaceable nature and significance of certain sites. There is clear conflict here with SP26 of our local plan. Considering this, development should only be permitted if it can be demonstrated that the development is essential for the economic or social well-being of the area. I cannot see that this development is essential for either economic or social well-being within our area. In fact, considering the impact on environment, leisure and tourism, I would argue that this proposition is in direct contradiction with SP26. Without an established land usage framework or outright protection for already protected sites and assets of national significance, we will continue to see applications come forward for areas that are wholly unsuitable. We will continue to address this issue with central government, as it is the key to not only addressing this application, but all further applications that may come forward on already protected sites. I will publish the full version of my response on my page later today.
Thank you. Questions from councillors. 6 questions have been received from councillors in accordance with Council Procedure Rule number 14. The time allowed for consideration of questions from councillors shall not exceed 30 minutes. So please be as concise as possible. First question from Councillor Pugh regarding brownfield sites. Councillor Pugh.
Thank you, Chair. My question is for the Leader. Can the Leader tell us the outcome of the Council's call for brownfield sites? How many sites have been identified? How many are suitable? And an estimate of how many homes could be delivered using these sites?
Councillor Whitehead, over to you.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Councillor Pugh. As I'm now housing and planning, you get me. 56 sites were submitted by the public under the Brownfield Call for Sites, which Councillor Everett brought forward. These can be viewed on the Council's engagement platform, Your Voice Thanet. Anyone can submit a site through the Call for Sites. They do not have to be the owner or have knowledge of the status of the land in question, which means that of the 56 submitted, 19 have been previously submitted, 13 already have planning status, which leaves around 15 potential sites for further assessment by officers. All proposals were analysed in relation to the criteria set out in the consultation. Firstly, is it a brownfield site? Secondly, is it able to accommodate 5 or more dwellings? Is it already allocated or has a current planning permission? Is it on the Council's brownfield register? If yes, no further assessment as they've already been assessed. Has it been submitted in a call for sites? If yes, no further assessment as they will undergo site assessment. Has it been identified in any other sources of sites? If yes, no further assessment as they will undergo site assessment. Officers have gone back to a number of site proposals to seek clarity on the site location or other details in order for the initial assessment to be completed. Officers are also checking planning histories where appropriate to establish the planning status of sites. In some cases, the sites have not been submitted by the landowner, so officers will also need to contact the landowners of any potentially suitable sites directly to confirm whether they wish for their sites to be considered. The 19 that were previously submitted under the general call for sites or identified as part of the Council's own brownfield land search are already included in the site assessment process for the new local plan. The 13 sites that have some planning status, including already having planning permission, either extant or expired, having current applications under consideration, or having been refused planning permission, will be assessed against local plan criteria and the outcomes of individual planning decisions. 8 of these submitted sites are already allocated in the adopted local plan for various development purposes. As discussed in the initial part of this question, any site subject to the checks set out above, there are now around 15 new sites to be assessed. Any sites that are identified as potentially suitable will need to be the subject of more detailed assessment under the site assessment process and will be subject to sustainability appraisal. I am aware that Councillor Pugh has put forward the Tivoli site as a potential brownfield site for housing. However, this site was previously allocated within the local plan as employment land, and I can entirely reassure Councillor Pugh that if I could find a way to build more council homes on suitable brownfield sites, that I would do it without question or hesitation. Thank you.
Councillor Pugh, do you have a supplementary question?
I do, Chair. I mean, firstly, congratulations to Councillor Whitehead, or commiserations for taking forward the planning portfolio. Only time will tell. I thank Councillor Whitehead for her answer to my question, and I appreciate the level of detail that you've given in the response that you've given back to me. I think it's important that all councillors and residents are aware of the process of what's being carried out and how everything's being looked into. However, and it's interesting that you mention the Tivoli Brook, Tivoli Road site, because my question is in relation to that, is that, you know, this consultation has been brought forward, and I'm glad to see there was a lot of sites that have been put forward, whether they be acceptable or not, or deemed to be acceptable or not. The Tivoli Road site was one of them. I want to ask Councillor Whitehead, do you think it's acceptable that Cabinet decided, before the full assessment has been carried out, and that information has been published and made public for the general public, to understand the reasoning on whether sites are suitable or not? Do you think it's suitable or fair that Cabinet have already made a decision to dispose of the Tivoli Road site whilst we're waiting for the outcome of that assessment? And my final question, or complementary to that, is that was this consultation just a box-ticking exercise and nothing else?
Councillor Whitehead.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Councillor Pugh. I think it's probably commiserations, to be honest. But yes, in response, in relation to the status of the formal consultation, actually it was initiative brought forward by Councillor Everett specifically to secure further brownfield sites. So this is on top of the work that's previously been done in general call for sites and specific call for sites to ensure that we're maximising the brownfield that we have. In relation to the status of the site, that's already decided within the local plan. It's already employment land. So it's very much not that a decision is now being made by Cabinet that designates this as employment land and to sell it. It is already designated as employment land and we cannot use it for housing. If I could use it for housing, I would be very, very, very happy to. Thank you.
Thank you. Next question is Councillor Cupp regarding the Winter Gardens.
Thank you, Chair. My question is for Councillor Duckworth. I would like to reaffirm my delight that Westwood One has been selected as the preferred partner for the Winter Gardens, and I fully support their ambition to bring the venue back to life as a vibrant venue for residents and visitors. However, the building has now been closed for over 2 years, and residents are increasingly frustrated at the lack of a clear reopening date. Can Councillor Duckworth tell us exactly when the building will reopen to the public, or explain why no target date has yet been set? Thank you.
Councillor Duckworth, over to you.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you for your question, Councillor Cupp, and your interest in the Winter Gardens and your support for Westwood One Theatre. An exact reopening date for the Winter Gardens cannot be confirmed at this time. The building requires significant renovations, and the Council and Westwood One Theatre are currently working through a series of key steps to de-risk the project before a final lease agreement is signed. This preparatory work includes developing architectural plans, creating a detailed business plan, obtaining pre-application planning advice and securing the funding so that work could begin as soon as a formal lease is in place. That said, the grant that the Council has allocated to the project needs to be spent by March 2027, and we are confident of delivering against this timeline. Through the work that we have completed with Westwood One Theatre, we know that they are also committed to this timeline and they will prioritise the reopening of the venue.
Councillor Cupp, do you have a supplementary question?
Yes, Chair. Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Duckworth, for that answer, and it is encouraging to hear that there is progression going on with Westwood One. I just would like to just ask whether there could be almost a better level of transparency on this issue with the Winter Gardens. I think there is a lot of concern. There's a lot of residents asking questions about what is happening with it, and even though I understand that you've got those conversations and those discussions happening, I think even still there must be some kind of time frame to when those will conclude. Thank you.
Excuse me, Chair. Chair, I'm sorry, I couldn't hear Councillor Duckworth's answer because there was a reverberation on her microphone, and I'm guessing it might not be recording very well. I don't know if she can use another microphone.
1 minute, please. Okay, she's going to use another microphone.
Thank you, Councillor Cupp. I believe there is transparency. There's information on our website. I wouldn't want to give a precise date. It will certainly be all up and running by 2027, but obviously something on this scale, you're going to run into things that you don't expect. And I certainly wouldn't want the organisation to be rushing and not doing things properly. So, but thank you for your interest.
Councillor Bayford, you have a question regarding home ownership.
Thank you, Chair. My question is for Councillor Whitehead. The Council does not currently provide shared ownership properties itself, but facilitates the provision through housing associations. This means that rent and service charge increases often make this provision unviable for people wishing to work towards home ownership. Also, the Council does not have control over the sustainability of these properties. This Council is working hard to increase the number of social homes available for rental. Would it not be both fair and beneficial in allowing more people to become self-sufficient for TDC to consider taking back the provision of home ownership so that it has further control over this initiative's success? Thank you.
Councillor Whitehead.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Councillor Bayford. This is something that is very important to me, as I first put this idea forward several years ago, and it's why pre-local government reorganisation we were looking to create a local housing company that could deliver just this service, as well as properties at median rent to supplement our council housing programme. Unfortunately, local government reorganisation and the unknowns in relation to future unitaries have put many of my plans in relation to housing on hold. And this is one area that saddens me particularly because, as this question addresses, there is a significant gap in the market in terms of affordable home ownership with clear service charge provisions and comprehensive management services. And it is a gap that I feel that we could have filled very successfully. This may be something that we are able to pursue further under a unitary model, assuming I still happen to be here to be my usual stubborn self in terms of essential housing delivery. But currently we are restricted to general council housing provision for the most part, although if we can find a way to make new home ownership product via the council viable, we will. Until that point, shared ownership products in Thanet are currently delivered by housing association providers as part of the Section 106 agreements. In line with the policy of the 30% affordable housing element, our aim is 70% of those units should be ARSR and 30% should be shared ownership. Over the past 2 years, there has been delivery of 307 shared ownership units compared to 249 affordable rent units and 140 social rent units. Shared ownership units are generally more profitable for developers, which is exactly why we specify the 70-30 mix, as Thanet's need is currently principally for affordable rental. So as a provider, we prioritise this form of tenure, as not only is it addressing a direct need, but it is also produced proportionately less than shared ownership. Looking to the future, there are 435 shared ownership units in the pipeline, compared to 510 affordable rent and 87 social rent units. These figures demonstrate that shared ownership in Thanet continues to be predominantly delivered by housing associations. There is therefore no need to directly compete in the delivery of shared ownership, as the market is already effectively meeting this demand and outstripping the provision of genuinely affordable rental properties, which are in significant need. Due to this, our focus remains on delivering genuinely affordable rental properties to support the significant numbers within our population who need this form of tenure. We do have a number of historic shared ownership properties within our stock. If, as discussed earlier, we were to undertake a programme to deliver shared ownership units, we would have to charge a rent and service charge relating to the unsold share, as this would support our borrowing need. This necessity would reduce our borrowing capacity for genuinely affordable rent, therefore affecting and slowing our current programmes of acquisitions and development and impacting our current acquisition and development plans. As affordable homes are currently being delivered in excess of genuinely affordable rent and social housing, our priority as a council needs to be produce housing for rental that not only supports those most in need in our community, but also supports the programmes that enable the largest increase in council homes for those who need them. Thank you.
Councillor Bayford, do you have a supplementary question?
Please, Chair. Thank you for the response, Councillor Whitehead. Having looked into this, Dover District Council, among others, provides shared ownership properties itself, and it also works with housing associations to offer these schemes. The council develops new homes as part of affordable housing initiatives, some of which are sold through shared ownership, as well as directing potential buyers to housing association providers. Would it not be beneficial, in order to support those wishing to take advantage of the scheme, to discover how they carry this out successfully? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Bayford. Yeah, I do follow local councils with a great deal of interest because we do tend to share a lot of our work in relation to housing and how we can maximise production of council housing. Dover's delivery is especially strong in relation to shared ownership, but they are not meeting the percentages that we are in terms of the production of affordable and social rent. So currently, we are looking principally to provide that because that's what Thanet needs. And so all of our strategy and acquisition programmes are directed to ensuring that the 70% affordable rent that we should have, we actually meet. As evidenced by the previous figures at the moment, we're actually producing more housing for shared ownership than we are for affordable rent and for social rent. And as housing associations and other organisations often prefer to deliver shared ownership, logically it makes more sense for us to work in the area that's actually requiring a greater area of investment. So there are very particular reasons that we focus on that, namely to make sure that what we are promising within the local plan and what we are promising in terms of affordable rent delivery, we are actually doing. Thank you.
Thank you. A question from Councillor Mons regarding antisocial behaviour.
Thank you, Chair. Is it a question for Councillor Alban or Councillor Keane? Thank you very much. Last year, Councillor Everett invited residents of Kingsgate to discuss the antisocial behaviour across the various beaches, roads and public spaces in Kingsgate. Issues from parking, camping and illegal raves during the 2024 season. I asked during the meeting whether private security could be utilised to help reduce these issues. I followed this up again with a question at full council. I was pleased to see that private security had indeed been contracted and trained to enforce the PSPO, the beach PSPO, for the 2025 season. And I can confirm the significant improvement this made to residents and businesses in Kingsgate. With the infamous rave being stopped within hours of being set up, many infringements were dealt with swiftly, including assisting police with the disturbances on the main beaches. Will you ensure the same approach is taken next season? And also, how many fines were issued by the private security company?
Councillor Keane.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you for your question, Councillor Munns. It has been another successful summer season across Thanet, with a significant number of visitors enjoying the area and residents. This does not mean that it has not been a summer without its challenges, including the significant ASB that Broadstairs experienced earlier in the season. This summer we took a different approach to the delivery of beach and coast services with separate beach warden and coastal enforcement officer roles. This allowed for a greater focus on the enforcing of the beach and coast PSPO and dog PSPO. Enforcement officers were deployed to our main beach areas. Their role was to educate and enforce. They had hundreds of interactions with the public and issued a total of 59 fixed penalty charge notices for failure to comply with the requirements of the two PSPOs. Each year we review the outputs and achievements of our beach and coast services to help shape service delivery next year. At this stage of the year, no final decision has been made on exactly what that will look like for the 2026 summer season. However, I am pleased that the hard work of the staff involved has been recognised, and we will be looking to implement a service that delivers similar successes next season.
Councillor Mons, do you have a supplementary question?
I do. Thank you. The revenue generated from the fines, will that be reinvested in those services if they're used again? And also, will if you look at that service, it felt sometimes it was a bit stretched, especially some of the troubles we had. And would you consider expanding that service for the next season?
Thank you for your supplementary question. I'm not sure whether the money is directly reinvested, but I can certainly find that out and clarify that for you. I think the thing is, we need to learn from what has happened this season and see what is needed. Our response next year will be based on what is needed. So it is really important that we analyse the results from this year before we can make any commitments.
Thank you. A question from Councillor Manners regarding trading licences. Councillor Manners.
Thank you, Chair. This question's for Councillor Ruth Duckworth. I was pleased to see a small number of new seafront concessions pop up over the summer as part of the Council's initiative to increase trading licences. Can the portfolio holder please confirm the number of licences that were originally available and the number of successful applications that completed the Council's processes and are now able to trade? What are the Council's plans to offer licences for the 2026 season, and where can interested applicants find out which sites are available and the requirements to apply? Thank you.
Councillor Duckworth.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you for your question. For the trial initiative to increase seafront trading licences, we accepted applications on a first-come, first-served basis for available locations and did not impose a limit on the total number of applications. If an applicant preferred a site that was unavailable, we endeavoured to offer a suitable alternative. We can confirm that 10 applicants successfully completed the necessary council processes and are now trading with valid licences. To refine this process for future years, we will soon be distributing a feedback survey to gather insights on what worked well and what areas require improvement for the 2026 season. Depending on the feedback received, our intention is to largely maintain the same processes for 2026, allowing applicants to view all available locations and detailed requirements on the Thanet District Council website. All currently published information regarding these opportunities can be found on the dedicated webpage.
Councillor Manners, do you have a supplementary question?
Yes, I do. Thank you, Chair. That's encouraging. I mean, obviously, 10 licences, there's obviously, we've got 20 odd miles of coastline, so there's obviously room to increase that number, and I hope that would be the case. With regard to the process to apply, would the council look at some additional explanatory notes? For example, on this year's application process, it asked for proof of public liability insurance, but obviously for a new business that was proposing to trade, they wouldn't have the certificate of insurance until after they'd successfully received the licence. So just some clarifications around some of the application processes would be helpful. And obviously, well, does the portfolio holder also agree that the council has an opportunity here to encourage young enterprise with these beach concessions? And my question would be, would the council give consideration to offering concessionary licences, ideally with additional officer support to young enterprise groups, such as local schools working in association with groups like Young Enterprise Kent, who I understand would be very interested in such an opportunity? Thank you.
Councillor Duckworth.
Thank you for your supplementary question, Councillor Manners. Yeah, I mean, we can look into the proof of public liability insurance. I've never had to apply for it, so I don't know how long it takes. I think if we had too many applicants, then probably people who've already got it would take precedence. As for young enterprise, I mean, we can look at, as you may know, we've had the teenage markets recently, so I think it's probably a good idea. Whether that can be transferred to beaches in the summer, we'd have to think about, but yeah, it's something worth exploring. Thank you.
Thank you. A question from Councillor Pressland regarding insulation. Councillor Pressland.
Thank you, Chair. My question is to Councillor Helen Whitehead. We understand experts in insulation addressed a TDC meeting some months ago and highlighted that natural insulation is a better option. Polyurethane-based house insulations often used are inherently toxic. Effective alternative natural insulations like wool, hemp achieve high insulation ability, natural flame retardant properties, breathing ability, reducing mould development. They are entirely compostable after use. We urge the Council to use only genuine natural insulations in TDC-owned buildings and all other TDC involvement in property acquisitions for the social housing portfolio. We would also urge, when TDC advises any people on retrofitting their properties, that they are guided to natural insulation and why. The external consequential costs of insulation products should be a defining factor in purchase and use, as this is crucial to achieving healthy environments for everyone and everything, short-term and long-term. Please can TDC enact such a policy with a timeline for implementation?
Thank you. Councillor Whitehead.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Councillor Pressland. The answer to this question is one of balancing ambition against resource and defining better in a way that addresses the different needs and usages of buildings. We are very good at balancing priorities in terms of optimising energy saving needs and housing delivery, but the balance to be struck here in terms of mandating a single approach only is one that would, without doubt, reduce the number of council homes that we can produce. There is a cross-departmental consensus that we should be using natural materials where this is viable. Indeed, we already use mineral wool to provide insulation in loft spaces in our own council stock. But it cannot be applied as a blanket policy, as it would inevitably be exceptionally cost prohibitive. We have to balance the budget in the housing revenue account and ensure that all new build schemes are viable. In some cases, having such a one-size-fits-all approach would be impractical. In other cases, it is impossible due to the requirements of nationally funded programmes. For homes funded through government schemes such as the Warm Homes Local Grant, a mandate is difficult due to national cost-effectiveness rules set by the Department for Energy Security and Net Zero. We will, of course, actively encourage clients who are self-funding to explore these natural routes of insulation over other routes. The nature of each material is also very important. Polyurethane is a more cost-effective option, but it is also a product that has a purpose, given that it is more able to insulate areas where it is not possible to fit thicker insulation. The different functions, capacities and requirements of buildings are a necessary discussion, which don't unfortunately adhere to a blanket approach either for or against. In respect of a broader discussion, the Council currently focuses on in-use carbon when delivering its land-led new build schemes, rather than embodied carbon, though there are specific occasions when embodied carbon is considered as a factor, such as retention or demolition of existing structures. This approach is reflected in the current building regulations. As a council, there may be scope to conduct a review of the potential to include embodied carbon considerations across our new build, acquisition and retrofit programmes, mindful of the equation set out above regarding ambition and resource. Further work will be necessary with procurement to understand its role in the tender process as part of employers' requirements. This mirrors the approach for schemes we are delivering with government money. The Warm Homes Local Grant Scheme, as mentioned earlier, funded through DAES NZ, has a national set of cost-effectiveness rules that we must follow. The Home Energy Advice Team has to therefore actively encourage clients who may be self-funding to explore natural insulation over other routes. This is a strategic asset management decision resulting in significant policy change for the Council. The question / statement being put forward by Councillor Prestland is that TDC should be considering embodied carbon, not only in-use carbon, and specify natural insulation / low embodied carbon products across all capital projects. This is a significant decision for the Council in terms of subsequent impacts. Whilst I am fully supportive of breathable and natural insulation products and consideration for embodied carbon, the implications of automatically mandating these across our new build conversion projects or void works across existing stock is considerable. We are already working to EPC A and including solar panels on our new builds, as well as using natural and mineral wool insulation where possible. As using natural insulation is in line with our current programme and aims, I am happy to put this forward for consideration at our next housing CAG. Equally, I would always have been willing to do that if simply asked directly, rather than through formal processes. Thank you.
Councillor Prestland, do you have a supplementary question?
I do, yes. Well, but it's not just about carbon. It's about the consequences of that product's use. It's far more than that. And so I'm disappointed by the Cabinet taking this position, as financial costs are clearly outweighing the benefits of a healthy environment, and this short-term attitude is sadly a disease of our time, and future generations are not going to thank us for this blinkered approach to policy and practical enactment. I would urge, we have the proposed green hub on the front, and I am interested to know whether you are going to adhere strictly to eco-building criteria in the building of this green hub. And I hope that, can you reassure me that that will be the case? Because otherwise it's feeling like greenwash in the context of that building.
Okay, so firstly, that's a rather odd response considering I've said that it will be brought to the Housing Cabinet Action Group. So we've already said that we will consider it, and you've given me a speech on how awful it is that we won't consider it. So that's rather strange. Secondly, in relation to the Green Campus, that is neither housing nor planning, that's part of regeneration work, so that sits under a completely different portfolio to mine. In relation to considerations in terms of health of residents, the reality is that what you are asking for is a blanket approach now, would greatly impact the number of houses that we can produce and the residents that we can get out of substandard, damp, mould-infested accommodation. So we have to balance what we can do to help people who are desperately in need now and who need council housing now with what our aims are long-term in terms of sustainable building, which is exactly why I said I'm more than happy to bring it to the housing gag. Thank you, Councillor Breslin.
Thank you. Moving on, notice of motions. 3 new notices of motion have been received in accordance with Council Procedure Rule 3. The time allowed for consideration of motions shall not exceed 60 minutes. Would councillors still, though, please be as concise as possible? Notice of motion regarding the amendment to the off-street parking places order. Councillor Cupp, this is yours.
Thank you, Chair. I will dive straight into reading this motion. So the current off-street parking places order adopted by Thanet District Council prohibits sleeping or staying overnight in motorhomes or caravans within council-operated car parks. This restriction has always applied, and recent signage was introduced to clarify this position. However, the existence of an overnight parking tariff has caused confusion, as this charge applies only to vehicles being left in the car park overnight and does not permit sleeping in motorhome or caravans. As a consequence of this restriction, many motorhome and caravan users now choose to park overnight on public highways. This practice is currently lawful under existing legislation, provided there is no obstruction or nuisance, meaning there is no legal basis for enforcement. This displacement has created pressure on residential streets and generated complaints from residents. Other local authorities have recognised this problem and introduced schemes that permit controlled overnight motorhome stays in designated council car parks. These include Pembrokeshire County Council. In 2024, they launched the Prem Stop, a scheme across 4 council car parks. Conditions included a £10 per night tariff, a 2-night maximum stay, self-contained vehicles only, and prohibitions on camping behaviour such as chairs and awnings. The scheme has been viewed as a success and is ongoing. Northumberland County Council initiated a pilot at 3 coastal car parks with numbered bays, an online booking system, £12 per night charges, and clear requirements for self-contained vehicles. A maximum stay was limited to 1 night with strict enforcement and signage. And North East Lincolnshire Council implemented a 12-month trial introducing 10 motorhome spaces in Thrunscoe Land Car Park, a £12 tariff applied for 24 hours with a 48 maximum stay and restrictions on non-contained units. The aim was to reduce motorhome parking on residential roads and support tourism. Now, these examples demonstrate that controlled overnight motorhome parking reduces unmanaged street parking and related complaints, generates additional income for the council, supports local economies as motorhome visitors spend an estimated £47 to £50 per night in local shops, restaurants and attractions, and improves safety and compliance through managed sites and clear conditions. Therefore, it is right that this council recognises the significant and growing economic contribution of motorhome tourism nationally, estimated at over £850 million per year, and that Thanet is well placed to benefit from this market if appropriate provision is made. So the proposed conditions for change. This council therefore proposes that the off-street parking places order be amended to allow overnight stays for self-contained motorhomes and caravans in designated council-owned car parks, subject to the following conditions. Sorry, Chair, it's a very long motion. Designated bays only, overnight stays permitted only in clear marked bays within approved car parks. Tariff, a charge of £10 to £12 per night, aligned with national practice, payable through existing parking systems or online booking. 3, maximum stay limit, no more than 48 consecutive hours and no return within 72 hours. 4, self-contained vehicles only. Units must have onboard toilets and waste storage facilities. Tents or cars are excluded. 5, prohibited activities, no awnings, barbecues, chairs or discharge of waste. Vehicles must remain road ready. 6, signage and enforcement, clear signage detailing conditions and penalties, enforcement integrated with existing parking control procedures. And 7, seasonal management, ability to adjust availability or tariff during peak tourist periods. The Council further requests a pilot scheme within 12 months, identifying at least 2 suitable sites either near a coastal village or a town which has a high level of tourist numbers, consultation with local businesses and organisations such as CAMPRA to ensure best practice and economic benefit, and finally a review after 12 months to evaluate effectiveness, income and community impact. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. That was your one and only overtime allowance. Thank you very much. Is there a seconder, please? Thank you. Now, the controlling political group is entitled to reply. I call upon Councillor Cabright.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Councillor Cupp, for bringing forward this motion on motorhome provision. If I'm getting an echo, I'll switch mic, so let me know. By my reckoning, this will be the 4th time in 2 years that members will have had the chance to debate the topic of motorhomes. I'm always happy to give my views on it, though. The issue of overnight motorhome parking is one that affects both residents and our local economy. On the one hand, unmanaged on-street overnight stays can be a pain to residents, so it's a problem we need to be solved. On the other hand, enabling responsible motorhome tourism does present a real opportunity to local business. So I agree with the substance of the motion. It doesn't make sense that for visitors to be able to park their motorhomes in our car parks overnight, but not to be allowed to sleep in them. And we need to do more for those visiting the district in their motorhomes. I can assure members that the District Council is already addressing this regulatory contradiction, but we're doing more than that. We currently hold 17 designated motorhome parking spaces across 4 car parks in the district: Minnis Bay, St Mildred's Bay, Joss Bay and Barnes in Westgate. Alongside making the necessary changes to the regulation to allow sleeping, however, we have plans to almost double this provision to up to 30 spaces, with additional locations in Broadstairs and Ramsgate already under review. Officers are also looking at the possibility of installing enhanced facilities to enable black waste disposal. That's the stuff we don't really want to talk about, but it would emulate the AIRS facilities found elsewhere in Europe. This expansion and enhancement will need to be managed carefully in line with best practice and regulatory requirements, including consultation with relevant partners to ensure safety and compliance. So all those points you mentioned in your motion, that's all stuff that will be covered there. I'd like to make clear that we won't set operational policy on the floor of this chamber, but basically everything you've said would be caught up within those points. But I do want to remind members why we're already doing this work. And this is where I'm scratching my head a little bit on this motion, because in April 2024, the Overview and Scrutiny Panel published its excellent report on the impact of tourism in Thanet. This made the recommendation to explore maximising income from the visitor economy to help balance the impact through, among other things, providing paid-for facilities such as overnight campervan parking. And Councillor Cupp, you contributed to this report as a member of the Working Party. Well done. Then, in December 2024, you were on the Overview and Scrutiny Panel that received the Thanet Parking Review, which again outlined that the Council should consider allowing motorhome parking overnight in suitable car parks that have the appropriate facilities in place to encourage. I will continue because we might as well get to the end, eh? Stop it. Facilities in place to encourage longer stays in Thanet. Now, it's up to members to decide whether we debate this motion or not, but the Council has already listened to councillors. The Council has already listened to the Overview and Scrutiny Panel, which again you were on when I presented the review. The Council has already listened to residents in the consultation, and the Council has already begun taking action on improving the provision of motorhome parking in the district, expanding it and making it better. So regardless of whether, you can come in later maybe, Regardless of whether we debate this motion this evening, the Council will deliver better parking for motorhomes, and we will deliver it sooner rather than later. Finally, I didn't receive any emails from you on this, Councillor Cupp, or from the shadow portfolio holder. And I would remind everyone that parking isn't particularly political. If you ever want to catch up on things that you've asked for us to do, and we're doing it, just give me a call or send me an email. I'm not in the business of stopping, asking to prevent people debating stuff. So if you want to debate the stuff we're already doing, then knock yourselves out. But we are doing it already.
May I remind councillors that in accordance with Council Procedure Rule 3.7, if it's not agreed to debate the motion, it will fall. If the motion is debated, there will be no vote on the motion. It must be referred to the Cabinet as it is an executive function. Can I have a proposer and seconder to debate the motion, please? Thank you. Do councillors agree to debate the motion? Agree. Okay. Okay, who's first? Councillor Orban.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Oh, sorry, I've got one of them. It is an issue right away across the island, and I live at Palm Bay, and we're quite often along Palm Bay Avenue. There's always 4 or 5 during the summer. Sorry. I just put them together like that, but anyway. The issues, there are some failures in this, right? Because at the moment, these camper vans will come and park in the car park. When our officers go down, they leave the car park. Our officers don't work after 9 o'clock. Sorry if anyone's listening about it, but they don't work after 9 o'clock. And then they come back and they stay all night free. So I think there's a lot of work there in relation to how we would enforce this. Obviously, if they're coming down early in the day and going to stay all day, and then they will pay. So I think those things need to be clarified and looked at, and I'd like us to work through that before we just rubber stamp what your motion says. I think there might be other things that needed to be added to it, but as it stands this evening, I'm happy to support your motion. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Pugh.
Thank you, Chair. I think it will come to no surprise to anyone in this chamber that I support Councillor Cupp's motion. I think hindsight is a wonderful thing, and unfortunately there have been unintended consequences to changes to policy that this council has brought in under the last Conservative administration and probably administrations before, and a lot of them have then piled up, and we've got a bit of a hodgepodge and a mess with certain policies and restrictions, particularly when they come to parking and where people can park and when they can't park. I think the restrictions on motorhomes parking on coastal roads through the night, I think was the right decision to be made. I think an unintended consequence of us bringing that in, but also enabling that motorhomes could park overnight in some car parks, has now had this unintended consequence, because it turns out at the time when we were advised of this that the advice was incorrect and actually it shouldn't be happening. So I contest that. I think what's really important to understand about this, and I'm sure Councillor Cupp will come back in a bit later, but this motion isn't political. This isn't about being political. It's about trying to solve a problem that, to be fair to Councillor Cupp, we as ward councillors in Birchton North have been dealing with a lot of issues, not just with the motorhomes, whether they can or can't park within Minis Bay car park, but also motorhomes that are then infringing on the rules and parking along the coastal roads or then blocking up adjacent coastal roads. We've had residents ask us to then expand the restrictions on that as well. So this is why it's been brought forward. What I would say to Councillor Bright is I'm absolutely delighted that he wants us to contact him about all things parking. I never knew he was so into parking. But then saying that, of course I did, because it's all you talk about. It's all you talk about, Councillor Bright. But what I would say is that it's been on my to-do list recently to pop you an email to invite you down, Councillor Cupp and I, to come to Minis Bay Car Park, come and have a look at some of the issues that are happening there, And if you behave, I might buy you a coffee.
That's a good one.
Point of order, Chair.
Yes.
I think Councillor Cupp is pushing a barrier there, I really do, and Councillor...
Thank you. Thank
That's
you
all
very
right.
much. This is all too very friendly. Councillor Davis, over to you.
For council, isn't it? I think we have to support this because it solves the problem for so many. There's a lot of talk about politics and so on, and we can save that for later because this isn't political, but what this is about people's environment that they live in. And whilst it's been an issue at Minnis Bay, it's been an issue at Kingsgate, it's been a particular issue for a long time. And my colleague, Councillor Rogers, had to get orders made over the last few years in order to stop the lunacy that was going on the Western Esplanade and the Western Undercliff, where it's really important that whether people like it or not, the road is what it is. There were problems prior to motorhomes parking down there with lorries coming off the ferry and treating it like a lorry park. So having clearly defined regulations to protect from people, just being swamped by these things has been proven very important. The problem has been also, though, that then pushes the issue back into the side roads and into residential streets. And again, we've had huge amounts of issues and complaints with people, and particularly over repeat vehicles. So I think anything such as this initiative that gives a defined off-road position, which is also safer for those in the vans. Because let's face it, if they're on a main road or even a side road, there are safety issues there with people stepping in and out of these vehicles. Put them in a defined area, and this council's as cash-strapped as any other. This is a revenue provider potentially, which even if it only became self-supporting, will pay for the maintenance of the car parks that they're on. But I think we need to vote for it with all good haste, and to say this is for the people and for the environment. It's nothing to do with politics. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Manners.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I'm really pleased to see this motion. I do think we need to be a lot more ambitious. Councillor Bright has mentioned that we have a target of 30 spaces for overnight motorhome parking along the Thanet coastline. We've got over 20 miles of coastline. It doesn't seem like a great deal. The statistics on this are quite interesting. 37% of motorhome owners have a household income of over £50,000. And in the EU, there's projected 8.5% per annum compound growth in motorhome ownership until 2030. It's a huge market. We're not that far from Dover and Folkestone, the principal channel crossing. And if Thanet were a welcoming and well signposted destination for those people, we could attract a far more lucrative trade. There is an issue with on-road parking with motorhomers, but a lot of that is because of they're people that are sort of one step away from homelessness who have moved into a van as an alternative to affordable accommodation. And I think that that's a completely separate issue to attracting motorhomers who do have money to spend, and we should provide a welcome, safe space for them to do so, that, as I say, is properly signposted. And it's really important that we develop our visitor economy. These people, as I say, we should be focusing on attracting people to Thanet to come here and enjoy the beaches and the coastline and spend money. So I fully support this motion and would hope that it would be expanded and would be far more ambitious. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor K-Bright.
Well, I don't support this motion, but it's not because I don't support the point of bringing it, right? And I'll tell you why I don't. But firstly, just to come back to Councillor Manners' point there on ambition. Yeah, I mean, I would love to gift 20 miles of coastline. We actually only own our car parks. This motion is about our car parks. It covers our car parks. There are certain restrictions within our car parks that prevent us from expanding beyond a certain point. I.e., for example, if you have more than 5 car parking spaces given over to motorhomes in a car park, it becomes a campsite and then opens itself up to all sorts of new regulations. So the the limit there is we are limited by regulation and we are limited by the fact that it's car parks, not campsites. We're also limited by weight restrictions. So there are certain car parks that simply could not, Albion Street in Broadstairs, for example, you couldn't have a motorhome there because of the smugglers' tunnels underneath. But why I don't support this motion is because you're making very specific points on the cost, on the regulation, all of those bullet points that are all based on a lot of best practice, but there's other bits of best practice baked into what we will need to do. For example, we need to repaint the lines, respace everything. There needs to be a 3-metre gap between different motorhome parking spaces. We need to consult with our insurers. We need to consult with Kent Fire and Rescue. None of that is within this motion. And it would be very wrong to pass a motion that is fundamentally unsound because of what it contains. That isn't a matter of criticism, that's a matter of you're putting a lot of operational stuff like pricing, etc. as well, that we can't agree to on this floor. So what I'm going to say to members is that this motion should not be supported, but we should obviously welcome Councillor Cupp for reminding everyone of what we're already doing, that you proposed in the first place in April last year and then scrutinised in December last year. We're doing it already. We don't need to approve the motion. What we can do is say no, but get on with it.
Councillor Will Scobie.
Chair, and following what Councillor Bright's just said, this is a matter for Cabinet anyway, so I move that we go to the next business.
Who's second? Sorry. Thank you. The motion is that we move to the next. Sorry?
He's already spoken.
You have already spoken, John. So the motion is we move to the next. Please. The motion is we move to the next business. Please, if you're in agreement, please raise your hand. And against, please.
Against what motion?
Oh, against the world. I don't know. Against the motion to move on. Thank you, John. And any abstentions? Thank you. So we are moving on. Yeah, it's worth saying that it's going to be referred to Cabinet anyway. So we're all good, I believe. Item 8B, notice of motion regarding climate change. Councillor Everett.
Thank you, Chair, and I'm pleased to know we got past 8 o'clock without me having to speak, which I'm sure you're all relieved about, and was my cunning plan. This was my cunning plan to give the planning portfolio over to Councillor Whitehead so she had to answer all the questions. Anyway. What we have here then is a motion which responds to a motion passed at Kent County Council in September to rescind its climate emergency declaration. And this was voted through at KCC in September together with a report setting out plans to abandon efforts to meet net zero targets previously set by that council in 2019. The KCC motion says that council should consider any energy scheme proposal with an analysis of its business case which should consider economic, social and environmental impacts and consequences. Well, nobody could really disagree with that, and nobody should be making decisions anywhere which consider climate change in isolation of other issues. That means that sometimes decisions will be taken by councils and in government that give greater weight to other issues, and sometimes they will be difficult choices. Many of us have concerns about the government allowing extra runways at Heathrow and Gatwick. But that has to be balanced against it lifting the ban on onshore wind farms, the ban on new offshore oil and gas licences and the establishment of Great British Energy. Government is complicated, opposition less so. But the real issue is what weight you give climate change when making decisions. And here, as so often, Reform part company with the facts. The background information they provided with their motion said that the Council's 2019 Climate Emergency Declaration had endorsed the unproven view of anthropogenic, human-induced climate change. It also said the KCC declaration had hurt small local businesses and scared numerous young people and had the effect of disallowing proper and reasoned debate on alternative viewpoints. The reality is there is a climate emergency and there is an overwhelming scientific consensus that it is caused by human activity. We owe future generations a duty to be honest about that. And actually, in my experience, it's younger people who are most animated about it. People are entitled to their own opinions, but they are not entitled to their own facts. The idea that there is not an overwhelming scientific consensus about humanity's causal role is simply dishonest and serves the interest of those with a short-term interest in using fossil fuels. When we adopted our climate emergency motion in 2019, my recollection is that it was unanimous. But what we are seeing now is a splintering of that political consensus, with the Conservatives in particular drinking the populist Kool-Aid. Kemi Badenoch, for those who don't know, she's the leader of the opposition, says that a Conservative government would repeal the Climate Change Act and remove the requirement to reach net zero by 2050. It is the very opposite of leadership, and I wonder if all our Conservative councillors will now take a similar view, or will they sit on their hands tonight, standing nowhere on the most significant issue facing us all? I certainly hope not, and I recognise they've made a constructive contribution to the discussion we've had here before. Former Prime Minister Theresa May said in response to Badenoch that this would be a catastrophic mistake and that we owe it to our children and grandchildren to ensure that we protect the planet for our futures, and that means giving business the reassurance it needs to find the solutions for the very grave challenge we face. Former Tory Minister Alok Sharma said the UK commitment to net zero had attracted many tens of billions of pounds of private sector investment and accompanying jobs. This is a story, he said, of British innovation, economic growth and global leadership, not just a matter of environmental leadership. The CBI, the Church of England and the Catholic Church have all spoken out against Kemi Badenoch's position. Leadership matters, and we know that under Lyndon Kemp-Carran, KCC will continue to broadcast misinformation, such as her public support for the idea that the COVID vaccine gave members of the royal family cancer, or that violence against women and girls in society can be framed as a migration issue. That's why this council needs to reaffirm its commitment to addressing the climate emergency tonight. Our officers need to hear that all the great work they're doing has full support from around the chamber. But most importantly, it shouldn't be a difficult choice for any of us to stand up for the truth. I'll read the motion, Chair. This council notes with considerable concern the decision of Kent County Council on September the 18th to rescind its climate emergency declaration. We reject any suggestion by KCC that the dangers of human-driven climate change are not supported by an overwhelming scientific consensus, or that it is not the responsibility of local authorities to lead the way in their communities in making incremental changes to safeguard the living conditions of future generations. We assert that there are potential economic as well as environmental benefits in moving towards a low-carbon future. This council is proud of the steps it has taken towards net zero. These include measures to decarbonise its own estate, including social housing, thereby saving money on energy bills for all. They include the acquisition of electric vehicles and the adoption of hydrotreated vegetable oil in place of diesel for those vehicles with internal combustion engines, projected to reduce their production emissions by more than 90%. And we stand firmly by our own climate emergency declaration of 2019 and will continue to work alongside other responsibly led local authorities in the county to develop and promote a low-carbon future for Kent, regardless of the political posturing and misinformation fostered by Reform UK at KCC and elsewhere. And I move the motion.
Is there a seconder, please? Thank you. Now, the controlling political group is entitled to reply. However, due to this being a motion from the controlling political group, the leader has offered the response to the leader of the opposition, and I have agreed. Councillor Davis, over to you.
Well. Despite all the fine words that we hear in this chamber, the leader seems determined to politicise the debate. Or should there be a debate? Is there a debate? I think everybody in the chamber shares the delight of the moves that the officers have made and the achievements that have been made, particularly the move to vegetable oil for our diesel vehicles. It's a phenomenal contribution to the targets that have been set. However, we're talking about 2019. This is 2026, if I'm not mistaken. Just wondered if you were listening, and that's why I pointed. 2025, 6 years on. 6 years on. As Kane said, when the facts change, sir, I change my mind. What do you do? Now, nobody is suggesting a complete reversal. However, we are blindly following Miliband's madness. And if you want evidence of that, look at the erudite speech given by the deputy leader so accurately against the nonsense on the marshes. Labour are completely confused. You don't know if you're coming or going. In one breath, you don't want the marshes to be destroyed and you want to protect nature. And in the next breath, you're driving the net zero agenda, which is precisely where the threat to the marshes comes from. This is confused thinking, but should we be surprised by this? No. And why attack Kemi Badenoch? This is Thanet District Council. Why attack KCC? They're entitled to their own debate. And under a democratic process, they came to their own decision. Whether we agree with it or not, we have no input on that. The same as MPs do not control this chamber, although some would like to think they do. Nigel Farage would like to think his voice carries in KCC. It has no statutory authority. So let's not all get carried away with ourselves, but let's actually remember the good work that's been done. Let's carry on with that, but without blindly following an ideology rather than the logic and the facts of the matter. We need a transition to sustainability, not to burn the bridges and then say, oh, where are we going now? So let's have a debate on this, and I would suggest that it's probably time to revisit the declaration, reinforce the good bits of it, and get rid of the rubbish that doesn't apply now. Thank you.
Thank you. Would councillors please note that in accordance with Council Procedure 3.7, if it's not agreed to debate the motion, it will fall. If the motion is debated at the end of the debate, a vote will be taken to agree the motion or not, as only council can agree to this motion. If the motion falls, then it will not be referred to any other committee. Can I have a proposer and a seconder to debate the motion, please? Thank you. Do councillors agree to debate the motion? Agree. Okay. Who's first? Councillor Yates, I think. Thank you.
Forgotten so quickly. Yeah, thanks for bringing this motion. I fully support it. I think I just wanted to raise one point, which is to try and lower the temperature of debate on this topic, because I think although we did unanimously pass the motion in 2019, it was a slight compromise. The 2030 motion that we passed isn't legally binding to a full extent. So I remember speaking to Councillor Bayford at the time, and we had to include the words 2030 target using all powers and resources available to the council. That's a get-out clause where we can say, well, we don't have the powers and resources to reach net zero by 2030. Not something that I was happy about at the time, but I just wanted to be transparent that there is no overburdening legal obligation for us to reach this by 2030. I'm really proud that we did get unanimous support, but I don't think we should be terrified by that motion or be looking to rewrite it, because I think it is something we can all support. We don't have the powers or resources available to do everything we need, but we are doing everything we can, and I'm proud of the work the Labour administration is doing, because I was part of it, and I think I'm hopeful that we can all kind of agree that that motion is still good, because I think that is something that's very important. So yeah, fully support this. Thanks.
Thank you. Councillor Manners.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I mean, the UK is responsible for less than 1% of global emissions, and what we think, say and do in this chamber on a global scale has absolutely no impact at all. Nothing we say or do this evening is going to change whatever might or might not be happening to the climate. Those decisions, if we do believe in anthropogenic, man-made climate change, got there in the end. Those decisions are going to be made in New Delhi, Beijing and Brasilia, not in Margate. So it does look like sort of dogma and almost like a religion that we would spend our time worrying about it. I would like to see an effort made for pragmatic measures that impact residents' lives directly, reducing particulate pollution from vehicles and so on roads, and road management that removes roads from popular tourist areas. But quite frankly, this is just hot air. It's going to make no difference at all to the climate, and just spending money for the sake of it seems pointless to me. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Cabright.
I don't think anyone's spending money for the sake of it. As was already referenced by Councillor Davis, is the efforts that we're making to make our own resources and our own fleet more acceptable. Councillor Davis made the point of when the facts change, so do you. I mean, the facts have changed. The last 10 years are the hottest on record ever. The facts have changed in that global warming is accelerating rather than slowing down. In 2006, Al Gore wrote The Inconvenient Truth. Well, it is inconvenient, and which is why a lot of people, sadly, are now inventing their own truth. The fact of the matter is that this ain't going away. We need to re-emphasise our commitment to this. And the point around what's happening in the rest of the world, well, that's leadership. We are showing leadership to the rest of the world. I mean, it might surprise Councillor Manners that China and India are actually leading the way in renewables. It's not a UK problem. This is a global problem, and the globe is catching up to it. We need to keep up with the rest of the world. We can't have China and India being at the cutting edge of green technology. We need to be at the cutting edge of green technology. And in fact, the green economy is worth 83.1 billion of gross added value to the UK economy. This is where growth is. We ain't going back down mines and digging up coal like Richard Tice wants. We're creative, we're building windmills, we're building solar farms, etc. Worth 951,000 jobs in the UK. I think this is something we can absolutely get behind, continue to support, and show leadership. You know, Kent County Council is a different organisation, but we need to show those in Maidstone that we are sane and not bonkers following this new kind of rhetoric that invents its own facts. We're staying consistent, and we should do that.
Thank you. Councillor Alban.
Thank you, Chair. I just want to kind of come back to Councillor Davis. I'm not having a go at you, John. So, no, but I think politics-wise, we've got Trump, Farage, and Farage's influence over whatever her name is at KCC. And that is driving the Doge thing that they tried to get done within their budget and cut everything, and they found that there wasn't anything to cut. It's already cut to the bloody bone. So I don't listen. I don't listen to that rhetoric. What I listen to is what you said. And what you said was the use of their vegetable oil in our diesel vehicles is the thing that our residents get the bonus from, in that the air that we're breathing locally is better now. We're lucky we live on the coast. You know, I've been up in London a couple of days, last weekend, still choking up there. And I think we've got to do everything that we can that's within our power to actually do so, to ensure that we do everything that makes this place a better place for our residents to live in. And if that means cutting things down and doing things and going greener, then that is what we should do. And I really hope that you support this motion, because it does send the right message out. It does send the message out to KCC to say, you think we're stupid and we're not. I might look it, but I'm not. And so I'm not playing their game, and I hope you support this motion. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Evans.
Yeah, Council's been talking about misinformation from KCC when they've been doing exactly the same themselves. I mean, KCC, we do want to be green, but where it's affordable. I'll give you an instance. We are supporting the hydrogen plant that's proposed at Manston. And it isn't a question of we're not green, it's just that we want to be green when it's affordable. I'll give you an example. Do you know what the embedded energy in a wind turbine is? You probably don't. It is 20 years. They've got to run for 20 years to break even, and they've got a life of 25 years. There's embedded energy in everything, okay? All I'm saying is you're saying KCC have scrapped their green credentials. We had plans to scrap the whole fleet of the KCC fleet, much of which is 23 and 24 plates. That is crazy. Fair enough, go green, but wait till they're 5 years old. All we're saying is we shouldn't be wasting taxpayers' money when we haven't got it. British Steel, they are getting coal from Brazil when it could be mined in Cumbria. This is crazy. It's just absolutely crazy. Ed Miliband wants to pump CO2 under the sea when planting trees would actually have the same benefit. All we're saying is be green, but where it's affordable for the taxpayer. Thank you.
Councillor Wilscoby.
It's quite interesting because that sounded even slightly reasonable, but that's not what happened in the debate at KCC. And you're vice chair, aren't you? Yeah. So that's not what your colleagues were saying, and that's not what you put in your motion, which was, completely opposing man-made climate change. So the things you're talking about, the positive things you're doing, are probably actually, Doe just looked at them and said the investment's already happening, so you have to keep doing them. Let's not pretend that if you couldn't slash budgets left, right and centre as a politically motivated thing that you wouldn't be doing it. But I was standing up to raise on a slightly different point, Chair, and that's just to say that the idea that the opposition are saying that this is an isolated thing and we're TDC misses the fact that we share a load of services with KCC. We share buildings. We work closely with them. So this actually sends a very different message. And let's remember this is local government reorganisation coming, so the staff and the decisions they're making now could directly impact and run into the services and the strategies that we've got at the moment. So this is important to make this point as to where that crossover is, and not just a case of, let's stick our fingers on our ears and say we're fine in Thanet. We literally collect the council tax and we literally have our pensions with them. The pensions that we put they're deciding where those investments go. So this is important. This isn't just a KCC issue and we can ignore it.
Councillor Scott.
Thank you, Chair. I'll throw my hat into the ring. First and foremost, what the council have done thus far, Thanet District Council, with the when we proposed the climate emergency in 2019, has been going strength to strength. So I do support the aspect of that side of things. I'm just coming from a global aspect again, but if you think about it, we could have solved, or at least put a bit of a stop on climate change around about 70 odd years ago, when we had the ability to enhance some further nuclear energy. And then that got halted by certain agencies, Greenpeace to mention one, with their diesel boats and diesel vans, and actually slowed it all down. Basically, Germany closed a lot of power plants for nuclear energy and then had to re-establish coal power plants to keep up with the demand. So it's little things like this. So I'm a bit concerned with greenwashing, but greenwashing from another sense of point, because green energy is still a business, and if people are generally concerned, why are green things still widely expensive? To still get a car that's, an electric car is still highly expensive. It runs on a grid that is still currently powered by coal. And the actual production of green electric cars, the carbon footprint is still higher than a combustible car. I mean, I'm not saying I'm completely against the whole strategy of meeting net zero. I just want to make sure that the transition is actually smooth and doesn't actually put people who can't afford to live in a greener way out in the cold. I mean, basically, I believe in self-accountability. I do everything I can to actually minimise my carbon footprint. And I think 2019, the last chair did actually ask how many people members in the actual council office drive an electric car, and only 2 people held their hands up. I'm not saying that none of us are actually doing our bit. I mean, we're probably car sharing, we're probably getting public transport. But I mean, for me, with a libertarian mind, I always believe that it's self-accountability first. I mean, obviously, we do have to put pressure on global things. And whilst China is leading the way, arguably, they're a bigger place, and they are still contributing the largest carbon footprint. I mean, just finally as well, with the green energy side of things, such as solar panels and wind farms, just the land mass they take is devastating, because we are utilising green fields to actually turn them into brownfield sites by putting these solar farms. And obviously we are having issues with the marshes where this green agenda is trying to push this through in, and it contradicts itself. I mean, they're just my opinions and thoughts, but just how I feel, and I just think we just need to just make sure that we're going at a pace that everyone can actually get to. Thank you.
Councillor Wright.
Thank you, Chair. To a point, I agree with what most people have said, but no one's talking about how the public can help. If you go into our council, the recycling places in the car parks, you'll see people throwing brand spanking new items, still with tickets on. We should be having a campaign to encourage people to reuse before they recycle. That would help. That would help a lot and wouldn't really cost a lot of money.
Thank you. Councillor Garner.
Thank you. As the councillor who seconded the motion to agree a climate emergency here that was proposed by Councillor Yates, I'm of course going to support the things said by Councillor Everett and support the motion. I just wanted to make a correction to Councillor Evans about the carbon used by wind turbines. In fact, the wind turbine offsets all the carbon used in its manufacture, operations and maintenance within 6 months of its operation. And that's from statistics 10 years ago. The turbines now are bigger and more efficient than that. So I just wanted to get that on the record. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, are we all done? Thank you. I call upon Councillor Everett to read out the motion again.
I'm not going to read out the motion again. Does somebody else?
Sorry, what's going on? Okay, over to you.
Thank you, Chair. Back in 2019, this council put the climate change motion forward, and it was carried unanimously. I don't see that anything's changed since then, and this motion doesn't change anything in that. We're still working towards getting towards net zero, or as close as we can possibly get to it. And again, this motion doesn't do anything to help that. All I can see this motion being is virtue signalling by the opposition, and that's it. Thank you. Sorry, the future opposition. Thank you.
You were doing so well over that side of the chamber. Okay, Councillor Everett doesn't need to read the motion out again, so I'm going to... Oh, you want to say? Yeah, okay.
Yeah, I won't extend the debate by much, but I will say Councillor Rizicki's just answered what's changed. I explained what had changed. We've now got a bunch of climate deniers. We've now got people saying there isn't a climate emergency. There wasn't anybody here saying there wasn't a climate emergency in 2019 here on all sites. There wasn't anybody. Now we've got a county council saying that there isn't a climate emergency, we need to focus elsewhere. Nobody disagrees that decisions have to be made on a balance of priorities, and we'll argue about what those priorities are. We'll say, for example, there need to be improvements to the electricity transmission network. We don't necessarily agree with the ones that are proposed on Minster Marshes. That's a fact. Unfortunately, the contagion is spreading, and it's spreading from Reform to the Conservative Party, and that's why I asked them the question. And I give them credit because they have supported the climate change measures that we've brought forward, and we have worked constructively with them. I think it's dangerous when the leader of the Conservative Party takes a different position, and I hope that tonight they will be able to support this motion so that we can affirm that we all believe there still is a climate emergency, and take, you know, let's take satisfaction from the work that we've done, but there's more to do. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay, we're going to vote on the motion now. I'm going to ask the simple question, do councillors agree first? Do councillors agree to vote for the motion?
Or do you want to vote?
Or do you want to vote? You agree, don't you? Yeah, they agree. They're agreeable tonight. Thank you very much. The motion's passed then. Thank you. Item 8C. Notice of motion regarding the sanctuary movement. Would members please note that Councillor Whitehead has she has validly amended her motion as per Council Procedure Rule 3.7. This amended version has been circulated to councillors. Have you all got the amended version? Yes. I call upon Councillor Whitehead. Over to you.
Thank you, Chair. Within minutes of this motion being published, multiple people were telling me what this motion was and what it was designed for, usually without reference to even the wording of the motion, let alone an understanding of it. This administration has always prioritised being a place of sanctuary in terms of addressing the multiple vulnerabilities that are present within Thanet, many of which we have already worked directly to address, such as rough sleeping and homelessness. This motion not only seeks to support those who are bluntly currently a deliberate political target, as we saw through the mass deportation rally organised by UKIP for some reason in my own ward, and through the continuous racism and misrepresentation that currently characterises so much of the discussion around asylum and immigration, but all vulnerable individuals in Thanet. Deliberate attempts to confuse and upset the population have made something as simple as an international right to safety when needed into a discussion around resourcing and scapegoating, rather than an honest and open addressing of the issues around asylum processing directly caused by Brexit. With Brexit having removed our existing returns agreement with Europe, we are now faced with the spectacle of Nigel Farage MP and Reform in general trying to convince the country that they are the solution to the small boats arrivals that they directly created, and spreading untruths and often telling downright lies in order to convince people that the issue is those desperate enough to need and seek asylum, not Brexit causing the exact issues that everyone knowledgeable said would be caused at the time. One of Nigel Farage's MP's first question to Parliament was to ask how many asylum seekers were housed in council housing in his constituency, which only needed a very short answer, namely 0, as in spite of immigration being quite literally the only visible policy point of reform, he did not know that as councils we cannot even accept applications for council housing from those seeking asylum. An amendment to my original motion was put forward by Councillor Yates this morning, and the Labour group were given sight of it after it had already been submitted and approved, rather than this being raised as something that we could work on together. It was, interestingly enough, the first written communication I've had from Councillor Yates since he left his party, as he left without a single word to his previous ward mate of 6 years, but did, however, find the time to write an extensive press release with the Green Group, announcing to the world what he was doing. However, we're a big fan of teamwork and have therefore incorporated Councillor Yates's amendment within our own, minus the deliberate political point scoring, and from an objective standpoint, what we now have is a rounder, more fleshed out motion, and one that any decent person would struggle not to support. The motion reads as follows. This council already recognises the importance of our duties in being a place of safety, committed to the support and inclusion of all of our residents. However, formal recognition of the actions that are enshrined in our duties is important, at a time when our communities are being encouraged to divide rather than engage with the vulnerabilities that we all have and the challenges that we could all one day face. With that in mind, this council publicly recognises the need for Thanet to promote the welfare and inclusion of all people fleeing violence, persecution, who are isolated and seeking safety, the importance of supporting the vulnerable, the homeless, the isolated and all residents in need, the positive contribution made in our local communities by refugees and those seeking asylum or safety. This council therefore resolves to join the network of cities and towns which promote the inclusion and welfare of people fleeing violence and persecution and become a recognised city of sanctuary, promote the inclusion and welfare of all those who find themselves homeless, destitute or isolated, continue to be a welcoming place of safety for all by encouraging integration, community cohesion and challenging discrimination and discriminating language of all kinds in all forms by politicians of all parties, continue to promote diversity through recognition and celebration of our different cultures and communities across Thanet, to encourage other anchor institutions and key stakeholders to become part of the City of Sanctuary movement, to bring back a report to Cabinet within 3 months outlining what practical steps this council will take to embed the core values of City of Sanctuary into our services and how we can further link into communities and organisations working towards the same aims and address the pressure placed on councils and those granted asylum by the proposed shortening of time allocated to find permanent accommodation. Respond to the upcoming government consultation announced in the May 2025 Immigration White Paper with specific focus on the challenges faced by the survivors of violence against women and girls, the rights of those seeking asylum to work and contribute to their communities, and the proposed changes to the status of indefinite leave to remain. I move the motion.
Is there a seconder? Councillor Keane, thank you. Councillor, I have to tell you that at 8:45 we would have reached the time up for our motions. However, it's a fairly serious, high-profile motion, and I am prepared to give it as fair a hearing as I possibly can. So I will go over time, but I need your help, please, to be as concise as possible. It may get shut down, but I hope not. So I'm just telling you my thoughts here. Okay, the controlling political group is entitled to reply. However, due to this being a motion from the controlling political group, a leader has offered the response to the leader of the opposition, and I have agreed. Councillor Davis.
Thank you, Chair. I think before we comment on the actual motion, I'd like to remind the Chamber...
Point of order. I proposed an amendment, and I've let you know in advance that I was going to propose an amendment as soon as the motion was put forward. Now, I know the motion has already been amended, but I still intend to move an amendment. So is it now not my time to move that amendment before the leader of the opposition?
No, it's not. One moment, please. It's not, but I'll tell you. Councillor Davis has the right of reply. As soon as Councillor Davis is finished, it will be you.
Point of order, Chair. We'll have to agree to debate the motion before any amendments can be moved.
Yes, we do.
Yeah. Should we go back to Davis?
Back to Councillor Davis.
No point of order, Chair. No point of order, Chair. I think this is an important topic because this island and its communities have a proud history of supporting vulnerable and those in need. And I think it's important that we all remember that before we get into any timeline, the port, the Royal Harbour, not the port, the Royal Harbour of Ramsgate is legally defined a harbour of refuge. Manston, whatever you think of it, has got that massive runway, double the width and double the thickness of others, as a refuge for planes in trouble. That's built in. You want to use the phrase baked into this community's identity. During the Dunkirk evacuations, people were never more vulnerable. There are residents in Ramsgate whose grandparents ransacked the department stores in Harbour Street to get the towels and the blankets and wrap the vulnerable people in it. And moving forward, we've had the spectacle of American segregation, but we were tolerant and we helped, and the Ramsgate Society, but the community particularly. Then we come forward to 1977 and the Iranian Revolution. We welcomed Persians, as they were known at the time. We welcomed them into our school classes, but many won't remember this because you either weren't here or weren't born. So let's look at this. So 77, the Persians. 1980, Vietnamese boat people who had to be dispersed around the globe because of what was going on in Vietnam. This council and this community welcomed those people and made provision for them. They were accommodated. We then come forward to the 90s and the 2000s, and so we don't have to put the complete chronological list, but you've got the Balkans and the Eastern European conflicts, where we welcomed, particularly in Margate and Cliftonville, vast numbers of displaced people. Then we come forward to the current Ukrainian crisis, where one of my colleagues, even this week, has signed up to a scheme to accommodate displaced Ukrainian family for a couple of weeks' holiday. So this community has made itself, it doesn't just fulfil a duty, it has its own flavour and a history like no other. So I'm afraid I have to question and use that most important word in the English language, why? Why are we listening to this? But more importantly than that, this is an ideology and a set of criteria that are established by a non-elected charity. And if we sign up to this, we're the elected members meant to make policy that supports our residents and provides for them, not unelected quangos and charities that we then blindly subscribe to their mantra. So I'm afraid I don't think this is a fit for purpose motion whatsoever, and because of that, we can't abdicate our duty to the people to follow someone else's diktat. It has to be the gift of the members to develop that policy and then to ensure its delivery, not third-party virtue signalling political organisations. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you. Would councillors please note that in accordance with Council Procedure Rule 3.7, if it's not agreed to debate the motion, it will fall. If the motion is debated, there will be no vote on the motion. It must be referred to the Cabinet for further consideration, as it is an executive function. Can I have a proposer and seconder to debate the motion,
Point of order,
please?
Chair.
Yeah.
Point of order. Can I
Yeah.
give it?
Yeah.
I did discuss the exact process with the head of Democratic Services just yesterday, and this was not the order that we discussed.
Was it not?
No, we agreed that the amendment would be brought before the vote on the substantive motion.
No, this is the order we're going, Councillor Yates.
Is this the chair's discretion, or is this
Point of order,
rule?
Chair. I think Councillor Yates is confusing the process. This isn't a vote on a substantive motion. This is a vote to have a debate. And only as part of the debate can you move an amendment.
Thanks for that clarification, Councillor Everett. I was not aware of that. Thanks.
We're not there yet, Councillor Yates. Okay, so can I have a proposer and a seconder to debate the motion proposed by Councillor Alban, seconded by Councillor W. Scobie? Thank you. Did councillors agree to debate the motion? Okay. Councillor Yates, it's you.
Thank you, and apologies. We are getting progress. I would say that, let me just switch over again. To try and speed things up, the reason the Green Group shared our amendment in advance was we actually want to see a better motion than what was put forward initially. I think it did lack teeth, and I think bringing back a Cabinet report in 3 months showing practical actions we can take does provide that teeth. But there are two big differences between what we put forward and the Green and the Labour amendment to the original motion. And they are, the amendment doesn't state whether it agrees with the announced May 2025 white paper proposals and how they will reduce the rights of asylum seekers, refugees. So it doesn't even state whether they think they are a good thing or not. And the second point is this amendment doesn't include any sort of communication to the government about how they are treating asylum seekers, refugees in their language and in their actions. So to avoid confusion, I will move my original motion based off the original. I will move the amendment based off the original motion, as opposed to the amended motion. So, firstly, the motion as originally presented fails to recognise the very real deterioration of migrant and refugee rights under this Labour government. It is a fact to say that Labour is now further right on immigration than the governments of Boris Johnson, of Rishi Sunak, Liz Truss. To be fair, Liz Truss didn't get much of a chance. But to ignore the fact that this Labour government is now turned far right on immigration without challenging it makes this motion feel particularly disingenuous. Even the debate feels disingenuous. If this administration truly wants to do something impactful, it doesn't need a debate. You don't need a debate. You run the council with a majority. Complain to the government, make meaningful changes. This is something the Green Group hoped to have done tonight with our amendments, and it looks like a lot of these have been taken on board, which we do appreciate, and that was the whole purpose about us sharing our amendment in advance. Ask anyone welcoming in Thanet what we do for refugees here, and they will tell you great organisations and volunteers that are helping our new friends locally. They do this under increasing threats to their personal safety, intrusion from the press, and now protests occurring each weekend. And tonight, the original motion was a sticking plaster. It didn't even acknowledge that these organisations helping asylum seekers and refugees existed. And it was introduced by a political party who are making the lives of asylum seekers and refugees more and more dangerous. My second concern was the motion doesn't actually match the reality of what happens with the council locally. I know this because I introduced our homelessness team to local charities involved in this sector, and I did so not as a formal introduction, but to complain, because refugees and asylum seekers are being interviewed.
Need you to keep to time, please, Councillor.
I'm on my last paragraph. We were introducing the organisations to the homelessness team because asylum seekers were being interviewed for temporary accommodation potential the day before they were leaving their asylum accommodation. As someone who's housed asylum seekers in my home, welcomed them to the town of Margate, and as someone who's recently resigned Labour over the scapegoating of refugees, let's not pay lip service to them, and I'm glad the Labour administration have amended their motion. I don't think it goes far enough, so the amendments we propose are as follows. This council therefore resolves to the addition of a new subparagraph as follows: bring back a report to Cabinet within 3 months outlining what practical steps this council will take to embed the core values of City of Sanctuary into our services, including working with local asylum seeking and refugee organisations. 2, respond to the upcoming government consultation announced in May 2025 Immigration White Paper that proposes an increase to the standard qualifying period of indefinite leave to remain from 5 to 10 years and the introduction of forced voluntary work, and respond by rejecting these proposals. Thirdly, write to and publish a letter to government requesting they A, reverse the decision to half the time destitute asylum seekers have to find private rented or temporary accommodation once they receive their right to remain. This policy risks refugees being destitute on Thanet streets. B, end the criminalisation of survivors of war.
Councillor Yates, I really must ask you to wind up.
I'm literally reading the amendment, which is the rules. So do you want me to finish reading the amendment? Because I believe I have to.
How much more have you got to go? You said it was the last paragraph.
Yeah, before reading the amendment, which is the constitutional way we do things.
How much more have you got to go?
2 bullet points.
Okay.
Thanks. Allow asylum seekers ability to work after arriving to the UK, reducing the need for expensive asylum accommodation in Thanet, a policy already in place in Germany. And D, stop scapegoating asylum seekers in government language from suggesting they are asylum shopping, they have golden tickets, and the country is becoming an island of strangers. This makes our friends in Thanet less safe and only increases the division that we already see. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Thank you.
Can I make a point of clarification here, please?
Oh, yeah.
In Councillor Yates' own word, he is moving the original amendment to the original motion, which no longer exists. And I don't understand how that can be done. He needs to think on the fly and make an amendment to the motion that is before us, not the one that is not before us. And I make no comment on the content of what he has written here. I guess it's procedural, but he's stated he's trying to do something that can't happen because it doesn't exist anymore. So I'm just confused if we're going to allow that. Well, I mean, you know, he needs to think on the fly and adjust what he's doing, as I see it.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Everett, can you help here?
Well, I think the effect of what Councillor Yates is trying to do would be to add the same clauses twice in substance, but not the ones that are not included in the Labour amendment to the motion. I don't think Councillor Yates can invent an amendment on the fly, because he can only introduce the amendment that was sent to Democratic Services under the rules. This is a flaw in our constitution. It is not Councillor Yates' fault, but that's where we are. We've had one go at trying to sort it out. I think we're going to have another go. That is the problem. I'd quite like to say a couple of things in response to his amendment, but just to be clear, if his amendment is accepted, it will go into the amended motion, and it will repeat things that are already in the amended motion, and that would not be a sensible thing for this council to do, I suggest. A lot of the stuff that we've not included is because it's not actually relevant to the motion. The motion is about signing up to the sanctuary scheme, and we always knew that this will go to Cabinet, and Cabinet will therefore make decisions about what it does. I think that some of the suggestions in the Green Amendment are useful, and that's why they've been incorporated into it. Turning it into attack on the government may be something that Councillor Yates wants to do now he's decided he's green and not red this week, but it's not really appropriate to the motion. One thing I will take him up on, he said that we'd not acknowledged the role that organisations play in helping refugees in Thanet. He's also written to councillors asking us not to name those organisations. So on the one hand, we're supposed to recognise they exist, but on the other hand, we can't tell anyone who they are. That's not a logical position, is it? Not for most of us. So I suggest that we vote down this amendment and we proceed with the motion that we've got as it stands, because I think it's fit for purpose. We can have a proper discussion with a report from officers at Cabinet about all the issues, and then we can take the matter forward.
Anybody else have anything to say? Councillor Bayford.
Just that this is obviously very complex, and some members are feeling very uncomfortable. Would it be possible to have a comfort break very soon, please?
Yes, it will. We'll have a comfort break for 10 minutes.
Vote on the amendment, don't we? Finish this and then have a 10.
Oh. Councillor Bayford, I'm told we can't go right now. We've got to finish this matter and then we can go. Councillor Scobie.
Chair, can I move that we go to a vote on the amendment?
Point of order, Chair, please. Yeah. Thank you. May I please second the amendment? Thank you.
Yes. We need a seconder on the motion to move to the, what was it? Move to the vote.
So, Chair, I'll just give some clarity. As Councillor Everett has said, by passing this amendment, we're effectively going to double this, so it doesn't need to be there. So I think the debate on the substantive needs to happen, the new substantive, the amended substantive. I'm not sure a debate about an amendment that's doubling clauses is where we need to be, so I'm moving that we go to a vote on the amendment so we can get to debate the substantive, the amendment that Councillor Yates is putting.
So we're going to vote on the amendment.
Those in, yeah. Those in
We're going to vote to move the amendment.
Point of order, which amendment?
It's yours, Councillor Yates. Those in favour, please raise your hand.
We have to have a vote to decide to move to... Chair, there needs to be a vote first to decide whether the question is now put. Moved. Yeah. So just to be clear, I have moved a motion without notice, which needs to be proposed and seconded, and then there is a vote on that, and then we will have a vote on the motion. And the reason for this, just so we all sort of come together on this, is we could have a debate now, but we are debating Councillor Yates's amendment, which cannot be put. So the point around this is there is no point in having this debate twice. We may as well deal with the amendment now that, if put, would double clauses, so then we can have an actual debate around the motion that Councillor Whitehead has put and discuss that. If we debate this now, we're debating an amendment that can't really be put because it's going to be doubled up. So that's why I'm suggesting we move to a vote.
I'll second Councillor Scobie's motion there.
Point of order, really sorry, we've now got two different ideas proposed and seconded. I thought you normally take them one at a time.
One's on notice, one's like a rule of debate.
Yeah, okay, let's keep the comments through the chair, please, and not a discussion between you. So we're moving to a vote on the amendment. No, we're not.
No. We're moving.
Council, please, we are now moving as to whether to take a vote on the amendment.
Yeah.
It's right.
Yeah.
It's right. They say it's right.
Yeah.
Don't look at me like that.
Yeah.
They're saying it's
Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
So, can we please vote as to whether to take a vote on the amendment? Those in favour, please raise your either hand.
Yeah.
Come on, we're getting there. This is it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Those against? And those who couldn't care less. Oh, thank you very much, Council. One more moment, please. Now we're going to vote on Councillor Yates' amendment. We're moving to vote on Councillor Yates' amendment. If you agree, please raise either hand. You choose which hand. And if you disagree, either hand. Yes. Abstentions, please.
So that is lost.
So that's lost. Thank you. One moment. Okay, Council, thank you for your patience. Thank you. Now we're back to the original motion, and we are now... No, we're not.
The one that's
Council, thank you. We are back to the original motion.
as circulated.
As circulated. Yeah. So now we're debating. Ray, got there. We're debating. Who wants to start? Anyone? Councillor Bright, hello.
Thank you, Chair. I wanted to thank Councillor Whitehead for bringing this motion forward, and I wholeheartedly support it. As a member of the relatively new Equalities Cabinet Advisory Group, I can confirm that encouraging community cohesion and celebrating diversity are priorities for this Council. But how we demonstrate this and put these good intentions into practice so members of our community feel the benefits of a welcoming, safe and inclusive place is something this motion challenges us to explore further. The Council already does good work to promote community cohesion and celebrate diversity, but there's always room for improvement, especially at a time when a vocal, hostile minority would have us believe that Thanet is not a welcoming and safe place, especially for people who are perceived as outsiders. This motion is an opportunity to affirm that this Council proudly supports anyone who's vulnerable or in need. We don't turn our backs on people because of the colour of their skin, their sexuality, their gender, class or religion. Thanet is a place that cares. In every one of our towns and villages, there are community groups and organisations showing unconditional kindness and compassion to people on a daily basis. Yet, there are also residents making it very clear that this support and respect should not be afforded to people who they believe do not belong here. This goes against everything that our schools, churches and families teach us when we're growing up. Love your neighbour, show respect and help those in need. This motion reminds us of these basic values and I will proudly be supporting it.
Thank you. Anybody else? Councillor Pugh.
Thank you, Chair. I thank Councillor Whitehead for bringing forward this motion. I'm going to be brief and quick because I appreciate that it's getting carried away, and I'm really looking forward to hearing the leader's report and everything else that we've got to hear tonight, as I'm sure everyone else is. Whilst I do sympathise with Councillor Whitehead for bringing this forward, and I appreciate there is potentially a need for it, and I sympathise with Councillor Yates for bringing forward his amendment to the motion. There's been quite confusion over all of that. Unfortunately, I'm not going to be able to support this, and that's only simply because I feel that, and this is on me, Councillor Whitehead, I could have put forward a motion or an amendment to the motion, but after seeing all of this, I'm glad I didn't, to be fair. Because I feel that actually with recent events with the terrorist attack in Manchester and not just terrorist attacks against people of the Jewish faith, but previous terrorist attacks, even on this home soil, against other faiths and those of the Islamic faith, I think it's important that it is included within here, that it is a provision for those fleeing religious persecution. I think that's really quite important. I think we've seen an increase of that across the globe. And I think as we were able, as maybe Councillor Davis said, I'm not too sure, it was quite a while ago, or somebody else did, you know, at various points in time, we've always opened up our arms to people fleeing conflicts and also religious persecution. So I think it would be important for that to be included. That's why I can't support it tonight, nothing else. So I will try my best to attend Cabinet and make that point again when this comes to Cabinet. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Green.
Yeah, I'd just like to thank Councillor Yates for his amendments, which I think, if they're adopted now with this motion, will improve it and will allow Cabinet to bring forward practical steps that are within this Council's gift to put flesh on this original motion.
Thank you. Anybody else? Councillor Everett.
Thank you, Chair. I mean, I think this is an opportune time to share with the Council this front page in the Daily Express. I mean, I've got to tell you, I'm not a big reader of the Daily Express. That won't surprise you. But this one was drawn to my attention. And it says, councils claim whole streets offered by use by migrants. 12 reform authorities warn Home Office about areas made available to asylum seekers. Inside there's an op-ed written by, Lyndon Kem Karen. And the editorial says, local authorities run by Nigel Farage's party allege that means whole streets of new houses are not available to local people. Communities in Dover, Thanet, Canterbury and Folkestone in Kent are reportedly the hardest hit. Well, this kind of poisonous misinformation is exactly why we have to adopt this motion and stand up to the misrepresentation that's going on out there. There are no streets which are handed over to asylum seekers. In fact, there are a tiny number of asylum seekers in Thanet. The vast majority of recent migrants to Thanet are Ukrainians. And I think we all know why the Ukrainians are here, and I hope most of us welcome them. So I just want to say, we really do need to challenge this misinformation. I've spoken to the leaders of the other councils, and none of them have any idea what this article is about. It is not true, it is misinformation, and it is designed to stir up hatred in the community and to make our residents feel that they're being disadvantaged. And it is false, and we should call it out.
Councillor Yates.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, and thank you to Councillor Green for his kind comments. And I agree with Councillor Everett on that newspaper piece. I think Reform have started something which is incredibly dangerous, and that is something we need to be very, very aware of in this chamber. The reason I emailed councillors to say not to mention the names of refugee organisations is the police are going to them and saying, you've got death threats on you, which we're aware about. And after speaking to the organisations who are working with refugees and asylum seekers in Thanet, they don't want their names mentioned. And I think I'm not doing this for some kind of weird political points. I know these people, I've worked with these organisations. They do not want their names mentioned because this is such a dangerous environment. I do thank the administration for amending their motion, and I look forward to see what the Cabinet report says. My concern remains that you haven't specified whether Labour's position when it comes to this immigration white paper is something you agree with. Forcing asylum seekers into voluntary work, is that not something you can oppose now? Like, why do we have to wait until Cabinet to find out what your position is on that? So I'll be supporting this motion in front of us now. I don't know how to call it. And I do thank the administration for amending the motion. Thank you.
Councillor Bright, Kay Bright.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you to Councillor Whitehead for bringing this motion to Council. It shouldn't be controversial, and I know that Councillor Whitehead has probably been spending far too much time looking at the Isle of Thanet comments section than is good for her, and it proves that this is apparently controversial. I grew up in the 1980s, believe it or not. A time, I know, but it's a time that some of us on this chamber will remember as a dark chapter in our nation's history. Although as a child in Gravesend, it was actually quite a nice time. And my childhood and teenage years were spent with friends whose families had come from all over the world, second and third generation immigrants. In fact, one of my friends was the son of refugees from Cambodia. And I've got really good memories of his parents who couldn't speak particularly good English, treating us to the most amazing barbecues. And I saw the pork dish replicated by my friend on Saturday Kitchen a couple of months ago, who now has his own restaurant. And what the point I'm making here is that even back then as kids, we knew what was right and what was wrong. We understood, without anyone needing to say it, that rubbing along together, respecting each other's differences and showing kindness was simply how things should be. If you told me then that 30 years later I'd be speaking at a council meeting calling for kindness and compassion towards asylum seekers, women fleeing domestic violence, trans people, disabled people, the homeless, I'd have thought you were mad. Yet here we are in 2025, faced with a political climate where parties like Reform UK, and I'm going to be careful here, Kemi's Conservatives, not the Conservatives of people like Theresa May, who's already been mentioned before, and Rory Stewart, who've been forced out of their party. But we've got parties like Reform UK and the Conservatives talking openly about mass deportations, and all that would entail the masked armed guards turning up at refugees and asylum seekers' houses to kick people out when they've been here for, many years, contributing to their communities. It's not normal. It just isn't normal when you've got the leader of KCC lying about our district. And when you've got the police telling Councillor Yates that he's not allowed to mention charities in case they get death threats. This is not normal. We would have thought it was outdated in the 1980s and 1990s, let alone this decade. We must stand firm and reaffirm the British values, real British values, not waving a little flag about, but real British values of kindness and decency and compassion. This isn't just about politics, this is about who we are as a community. And it's important that we tonight reaffirm that. We don't other people, we don't blame society's ills on them. That was the tactics used in the 1930s. We don't punch down. And when other people do, we call it out. Last week I walked through Liverpool Street Station and I saw the Kinder Transport Memorial. That's a powerful reminder that our country once welcomed those fleeing persecution. And many of those children went on to build lives here. My own family fought tyranny. My granddad and his brothers fought against tyranny so that Britain could remain a place of sanctuary. They were probably members of the original Antifa. That's the Britain I'm proud of, a country that celebrates diversity. Mo Farah on Super Saturday, Ben Stokes pointing the champagne the other way from Moeen Ali when we won the World Cup. The Britain I'm proud for is the one that cares for the vulnerable and offers hope to those in need. It's not a country defined by flags on lampposts or defined by divisive rhetoric. I'll quickly sum up. Here in Thanet, we have a duty to every resident. By joining the City of Sanctuary movement, we send a clear message. We stand for inclusion, support, and community. I urge all members to support this motion, not just because it's the right thing to do, because it's who we are.
Councillor Davis.
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to reiterate that this community and this authority already do everything that is discussed here. And if we want to set policies that promote, inclusion and warmth in the community, we can do that. But we should not be signing up to an alternative, undemocratic, unelected body's mantra as our policy. It's our job to do that. That's what people elected us for, not to run around signing up willy-nilly to other people's mantras that they can change their requirement and set a duty on us. No, that's not. We must reserve the right to make our own decisions and not be led by the nose. Thank you.
Councillor Pope.
I just wanted to say thank you to Councillor Whitehead for bringing this forward, and thank you to all the community organisations who support people across Thanet. It's important that we show where we stand at this time and see where we can work harder. I will be supporting this motion.
Thank you. Okay, so I think we're at the end of this debate. Councillor Whitehead, I'm not going to ask you to read the motion again, so a quick sum up, please.
Yes, to wind up. To answer Councillor Yates' previous argument, in reality both issues he states have not been addressed by the amended motion have. They just don't incorporate the direct promotion of the Green Group and denigration of the Labour Group that he clearly wants on a proposal that should be universal and unproblematic. As Councillor Yates is also very aware, this motion requires a Cabinet response, which means that a full report would always have been forthcoming, which means that it didn't need to be directly mentioned. It is not a weakness or a lack of teeth, it is a simple knowledge of council process. Councillor Pugh, we deliberately focused on diversity as a whole and vulnerability as a whole, but I'm more than happy to ensure that your contribution is considered by Cabinet as it is relevant. There were many events that led up to me submitting this motion. All are unedifying. The background to it was day after day, week after week, seeing reports on adults, women and children drowning, desperately trying to reach a place they hoped would be safe, and willing to risk their lives and the lives of those they loved the most to manage it, and seeing local political groups and their supporters laugh reacting to those deaths, article after article, with local media even having to shut down comments on some articles due to just how abhorrent, racist and cruel their reactions were to the deaths of other human beings. One woman and a child drowned. Laughter. 2 children drowned. Laughter. And as announced today, hate crimes now on the rise for the first time in 3 years. Then there are the communications I received telling me that asylum seekers are taking the housing they can't even apply for, that £9 a week to exist while a country processes your application for safety is somehow a fortune, that cramped several-room emergency accommodation is somehow 5-star accommodation, and that our council, which made a deliberate point of extending council house priority and accessibility for veterans, is somehow neglecting them and giving their homes to those seeking asylum, when those seeking asylum can't even apply to our register. Finally, there are the posts still up from a UKIP previously Reform representative proudly shouting that this country should not be paying foreigners to inbreed, that were then followed by UKIP and Reform representatives telling me that what I am witnessing now isn't outright racism, isn't utterly obscene, and isn't something that should be utterly and completely unwelcome in our country and community and our homes. What is happening now is not normal. I don't know how many times that line needs to be repeated, but it is vital that everyone listening now understands and hears that this level of demonisation and vitriol towards a minority is not normal or acceptable. This is not a free speech issue. This is a have some basic humanity issue. We have seen this pattern before at various points in history. The one thing that always remains true is that it never stops with one minority. Today, it is those seeking asylum and references to eugenics and breeding, those who should not. As a disabled woman, I know that's history. It was used to sterilise women like me, as we weren't fit to be part of the world that those reaching for power wanted to create. Next, it's those who disagree. We're weak, we need to be removed, we need to be silenced. And beyond that, the ever-present lie that the situation we find ourselves in, the challenges we face as a community, are the fault of a tiny minority. What has happened to our country in over a decade of austerity is not the fault of any vulnerable minority. It is our fault, all of us. We are the ones who, as a whole, elected individuals who gutted social housing and public services. We are the ones who ignored the realities of those decisions and are now left simply staring at the wreckage from which we have to build again. Those who tell you that the state of public services is the fault of one minority are using you. They are lying to you, exploiting you, and damaging you. And I cannot and will not pretend otherwise, regardless of how I am viewed. Humanity is a thread that ties us together, that shows us that the things that we need and strive for are the same things that every other human has a right to, and that is the only truth to look to and acknowledge. This motion asks simply that we treat those in need well, that we put in processes to support those who are placed here, that we visibly counteract racism, discrimination, and abuse as a council, and that we unite to do so. Humanity asks us to care for others as we care for ourselves. This is not something that any of us should object to doing, and a Thanet that doesn't, that divides, that damages, that hurts, that targets and abuses, is not a Thanet I recognise, and is not the Thanet I love and work for. I have spent over 6 years working to support all the residents in Thanet, and I've never been afraid of fighting for those who are most vulnerable, and I am completely unafraid now. We have to choose unity, not division, and build a Thanet that works and cares for all of us.
Thank you. This motion will now be referred to Cabinet. So thank you for your contributions. I'm going to take a 10-minute break. 9:20. Please be back by 9:30. 1 minute, councillors, 1 minute.
Most other councils don't have this right to speak to cabinet under Rule 20. Most other and the opposition weren't allowed to win it. They have to go sit the public.
It's outrageous. Is it a job?
Here, there's a public debate.
Noted. Thank you, Abby. Thank you.
But it's good to see the contrast.
I think. Can we get back to our seats now, please? Rick. Okay, we're going to make a start on page 17. Page 17 for me, there's only 34 pages to go. We're going to kick in with the Leader's Report. Item 9, Leader's Report. Leader, over to you.
Thank you, Chair. I think you'll all be aware that Kent Police evacuated residents of 4 roads in Margate last night following a report of a property containing suspicious items. In line with our emergency planning, officers moved quickly to set up a welfare centre at Hartstown Leisure Centre. The council hosted about 25 people, providing food, drinks and other support, and thankfully they were able to return home after midnight. I know that this will have been a disturbing experience for those involved, but I want to thank our officers as well as the police for their efficient response. I also want to say something about the attack on the synagogue in Manchester last week and recognise the effect it's bound to have had on our Jewish community here in Thanet. Polly Billington and some councillors attended Ramsgate Synagogue on Saturday morning to show their solidarity and support, and I believe the whole council would want to be united in standing with those whose personal security feels threatened by this attack. This time it's been the Jewish community, but over the weekend there was also an attack on a mosque in Sussex. There can be no excuse for violence directed at people in this country because of their faith, however grotesque we might find what's happened in the Middle East. I also want to mark the death of Betty Wrens from Cliftonville, who died last month and whose jazz funeral took place at Margate last week. I didn't know Betty, but I'd heard plenty about her. She was a renowned campaigner for health services in Thanet, as well as being a jazz singer, a keen sailor and an active supporter of the RNLI, and we send condolences to her family and friends and recognise with thanks her contribution to life in Thanet. Positive news came with the announcement that Thanet had been awarded an additional 1.5 million under the Government Pride in Place Impact Initiative. And understandably, there have already been a number of suggestions as to where this money should be spent. It is all capital, and it's to be paid in 2 instalments of £750,000, one this financial year and one next, so we will need to move quickly on this. But as ever, it will be important to ensure that the money is used to maximum effect and that the opportunity is not limited to those who shout the loudest. The projects must meet the government's criteria to improve community space, public space or high street and town centre rejuvenation. That means a proper process for considering ideas in conjunction with our 2 MPs, and we will set out more about how that will happen next week. We're looking to use the existing Partnership Regeneration Board as a sounding body for this award, although the Council is the ultimate decision-making body. The 20 million Ramsgate Plan for Neighbourhood scheme has also been renamed Pride in Place, which for maximum confusion is the second rebranding in a year. However, I'm pleased to say that we have progressed the appointment of the Neighbourhood Board, which will meet for a second time next week. Local people were invited to share their thoughts via online surveys, which closed in September on this project. These gathered data on priorities for an improved Ramsgate, with 1,046 online surveys and approximately 490 paper surveys completed, and these are currently being analysed. A business survey was also developed with 97 completed. The next stage will be around 24 focus groups and drop-in sessions led by Ramsgate stakeholders, which will gather rich qualitative input, building on the priorities and themes identified in the survey. These workshops will also include resident and stakeholder views to contribute towards the 10-year vision for Ramsgate, with a submission to central government planned for November. We are starting to see visible progress on the existing regeneration projects, with work getting underway at the Clockhouse and planning applications submitted for the Green Campus at Ramsgate Port and Walpole Bay, as well as advanced construction at Newington Community Centre. Projects that we're not leading on, such as the Margate Creative Land Trust and the Digital Campus in the High Street, are also taking shape. Perhaps the project that has the most external interest is the Winter Gardens, where earlier this year we appointed Westwood One as our partner, subject to further development of their plans. This has been the subject of a question already tonight. The decision to proceed must be made in the right way and based on full consideration of all the information. But we are very close indeed to reaching it, and I am hopeful, as of tonight, that it will be good news. 2025 will go down as a good summer, and I believe that was also true of our beach management measures. Changes we made in the way the two extant PSPOs are applied appear to have resulted in significant progress in terms of interventions to challenge behaviour, and also enabled us to issue many more fixed penalty notices. Rather than seeing that as indicating a decline in behaviour, I believe it's a tribute to the efficiency of the enforcement system we put in place and the work of those involved. Following the spike in antisocial behaviour at the beginning of the summer, extra police resources have been allocated across our towns, and Chief Inspector Swallow recently outlined to the Parish Forum how they had had success working with the Transport Police and South Eastern in stopping some potential problem groups from boarding trains to get here. One problem group that did arrive successfully was, of course, the London-based private company, the Free Speech Union, in the person of Toby Young. We should be clear that the FSU is seeking to use the law to hold this council to a different standard to other councils, and indeed to this council in the past. Let's also be clear that they have objected to every single provision of the PSPO, not just challenged the one on swearing. The consultation we carried out showed overwhelming support for the PSPO. The Free Speech Union didn't respond to it. They contacted the council 36 hours before the cabinet decision was made. They added multiple new objections after it had been made. They even objected to us making changes that reflect some of the concerns they raised. Their legal letters claim that they are a non-partisan organisation, yet the video they released about our PSPO began with an attack on Keir Starmer, who rather obviously has had nothing to do with the matter. Clearly they are a politically biased organisation, and their scattergun legal attack is designed to find a point of law on which they can force this council into court, and then claim that it is us who is wasting taxpayers' money, when in fact it is them who are denying residents of Thanet the legal protections that they have told us they want. I'm happy to trade arguments with a Tory Lord who relies heavily on his lawyer's interpretation of the European Convention on Human Rights, the UK's recognition of which the Tory leader apparently wants to end. But this isn't a game to people in Thanet who are on the receiving end of antisocial behaviour, or to the police who have supported the proposed PSPO. Our lawyers will look closely at the points the FSU have made, both before and after the PSPO was adopted, and we will consult the public again on the basis of their recommendations. But it is my view that there is no outcome that will satisfy the FSU or stop them trying to get us into court. As just one example of the issues in the real world, the Ramsgate Traders Group wrote to me recently with their concerns about antisocial behaviour affecting their businesses in the town centre, and I've arranged for a multi-agency meeting to take place before the end of the month so that we can work together to find ways to address them. We know these issues are complex and that the PSPO is just one tool we can use to tackle them, but we can't have one hand tied behind our back by people with no real stake in Thanet or interest beyond the headlines they can make for themselves in the media. One area we've had substantial progress in is in tackling graffiti. We've put resources into this in each of the last two budgets, culminating this year in 2 fully equipped teams working across Thanet and a huge increase in the number of locations cleaned up. 6 months into the year, we've already hit our target of 750 locations for 25-26. It's a great example of the Council putting resources into a clear policy objective and the outcome being unequivocally delivered. But it's also a tribute to the commitment of the officers and staff, and I thank them all. On parking, a new residential parking policy has been drawn up and will be published for consultation very soon. I'm also pleased to announce that the Council has now acquired the freehold of the Royal Harbour car park, where the installation of new lifts is due for completion in November. On local government reorganisation, an extraordinary Council and Cabinet will now take place on November the 20th, following which we will indicate our preferred option from what are likely to be 4 or 5 choices for which business cases are currently being evaluated. Over the next few months, work will be completed on our new build housing projects at Tomlin Drive, the former Dane Valley Arms, Stanner Court and Clements Road, bringing a total of 49 new properties into our council housing stock. These properties will go to eligible Thanet residents according to our allocation process. Whatever is claimed on Facebook, they will not go to people sent down here by London boroughs, asylum seekers or visitors from outer space. We are also gearing up for the major programme of improvement works on our tower blocks, despite delays caused by the backlog of approvals from the Building Safety Regulator. I know, including from Stanner Court in my ward, that some of these works have an impact on our existing tenants and leaseholders, but I'm confident that the housing team is doing everything they can to minimise those issues and that ultimately everyone will benefit. Cabinet recently allocated resources to help us bring forward a new selective licensing proposal for consultation in order to manage the standard of accommodation in parts of the private rented sector. This work is at an early stage and will be the subject of further decisions if it proceeds. I know that there will be many conscientious private landlords in Thanet, and apparently the Green Party wants to abolish them, which I'm sure we'll all be interested to hear about from Councillor Austin. But we have a moral and legal duty to protect those in substandard accommodation, and a selective licensing scheme will strengthen our ability to do that. It is good news that planning consent was granted recently for the new permanent Rise Centre in Grosvenor Place. This council has cause to be proud of its work to support rough sleepers, and this is an important step forward. But as an administration, we heard the concerns of those who objected, and we will work to ensure that they're not realised. While this building is being prepared, we've established a Rise Winter Shelter in Ramsgate with the support of St Lawrence Church, and our staff will be assisted there by the Salvation Army and volunteers. And I'd like to thank the church in particular for its support. Finally, many of you will know that our Housing Cabinet member and Deputy Leader, Helen Whitehead, has been shortlisted for an award as Innovator of the Year at the LGIU Councillor Awards on November the 18th. I would hope that we recognise across the Council how richly this is deserved, and her passionate engagement on the Rise issue and willingness to address concerns from residents is just one example of why she deserves such recognition. I hope you'll all join me in congratulating her.
You better win it now.
Thank you. Councillor Davis, would you like to comment on or ask questions in relation to the Leader's report?
I would, Chair. Thank you very much. And thank you, Leader, for a very thorough report. Awful lot of items in there. I've got 5 minutes, so I'll try and cover them all effectively. I'd like to echo the Leader's statements and sentiment regarding the emergency event yesterday, because I think everybody acquitted themselves amazingly, and the stress that that must cause to the whole community, not just those evacuated but those around them, is something that we must be mindful of. And it relates again to that vulnerability that was mentioned, where we all, I believe, in this chamber stand by anybody vulnerable, but what is not acceptable is that this country is degenerating to a point where people do not feel safe in their own community because of their faith or conviction. That isn't acceptable for anybody. And for those who have experienced genuine fear, and there are some of them domestically have experienced that, others by travelling, no human being should have that. So, you know, we stand united with all of those affected and give our thoughts. Betty Wrens, what a name. She was around for a long, long time, all through some of our formative years and so on. I remember particularly her campaigning about opening hours at A&E, which was vital, because as well as it's been mentioned about the attempt in '69 to close it, in the mid-70s it went 9 to 5. Friends of ours died because of the journey to Canterbury after 5 o'clock. So that's a very her campaigning was very, very meaningful to quite a few of us that were in this community at the time. And I think it's wonderful that she has been remembered as warmly as she has, and the media. And we'd send our condolences but congratulations to her family for the wonderful work she did. Pride in Place. How many more rebrands do we have to have? Someone's getting paid somewhere for coming up with all these names and alliterative comments. However, it's wonderful because it's more money for Thanet. I would like to think that, there's a process, it will be allocated, how it is allocated, and having explained that it's capital the leader. I think some of the ambitions are a little bit over-ambitious, because it talks about CPOs and things, and let's face it, it's $1.5 million, which doesn't go a lot of that far in the modern world. But it is all grist to the mill and fuel to the fire, so again, let's recognise that, and hope that some of the projects in Ramsgate that can be brought forward from what was planned for neighbourhoods deliver, because the community deserves it. The residents' survey, the response to the surveys, by the way, on that, I notice, were massively more successful than last year's residents' survey, and that in no way reflects on the residents' survey, but I think it possibly shows a better engagement with the community, and shows how caring that community is, and that probably is applying around the island. So to all those, including the comms team, that are getting this message out and talking to people, something's moving the right way there. With regard to regeneration, some of us have some very real concerns about the stage we're at, but this isn't necessarily the platform to discuss that, other than to highlight that we do have those concerns in the direction of some of it. However, it's good to hear that the Winter Gardens is moving forward, because that is a massive project and obviously of great concern to everybody, and it would be good to see it moving at a pace, but on the other hand, one has to take a breath before the leap. So let's make sure that diligence is done properly, because I myself have said that there have been concerns in the past. We have to listen to those, and we have to listen to the residents. But by the same token, there's an underwriting process, and let's hope that some of these projects at least come to fruition in the near future. It was a good summer. I actually attracted Greenpeace with a whale sighting on the Western Undercliff, because I dared to take my shirt off one day. And I have to say, interestingly enough, despite the problems that Southern Water have caused, the water was beautifully clear. So it proves that, I think it was Mr. Humber had to keep beaches shut for a couple of days to allow the sunlight to work its magic. But organically, the bacteria dispersed and everybody swam happily again. So it's disgusting that we have to put up with this, but hey. With regard to I will be quick, Chair, if I may. With regard to the antisocial behaviour side of things, there is no excuse for some of, especially gangs of youths coming into the town, and it's good to hear that there's a combined effort and that they're being intercepted before arrival. Because, of course, it's not the reason a lot of the local kids get involved is because they get sucked into the situation. I'm not saying it's not locals, and I'm not saying it's all incomers, but anything that can be done to control that traffic. They used to do it years ago with the football trains and things and turn people away, so, it can be done.
Stop doing that.
With regard, I'm not going to go on too much about the Free Speech Union, because we've made our position clear, which is that we're not lawyers, but the lawyers have said that they believe the situation's flawed. We understand why now's not the time for debate, but I would just highlight that our position as a group has been to caution and to advise caution because of the risk to the public finance of a failed appeal, and that with the information we've been given, we believe that appeal, and obviously the monitoring officer and legal department felt the same because they've made necessary adjustments. All I would do is suggest that instead of being combative, if we could perhaps welcome the input of the King's Councils and so on that advise the Free Speech Union. Who knows what could come out of that on a collaborative basis, but I'd recommend that as opposed to just constant. And I understand that there's been beef, but graffiti, fabulous. The people are saying how much cleaner the place looks. So I've got to say well done to those concerned, and I believe it's because we've got the dedicated team and the right equipment that they're able to react. And the other thing is, of course, we're now going and moving it off of private property, but with permission. That, I think, is a massive step forward, because some of the worst places is on the walls of private property. Good that the parking consultation is due to be published soon. We did wonder if it was, if it was ever going to arrive, but on the other hand, I will leave that in the capable hands of my colleagues to deal with. But excellent news that the freehold has been recovered to that car park, because that's been a millstone around the neck of this council since I think it was 1974 or 5 when it was first built. So well done to all concerned on that, because that should now give us control of things, and we're not paying out money for something not fit for purpose. Housing, I'm pleased to see that we're finally getting into the delivery phase on Tomlin Drive and the other brownfield council sites, because of course that's a cross-party thing, because it was started under our administration, and I'm pleased to see that you've been able to follow through and deliver that promise that we made to the residents. So again, you know our position on social housing and affordable housing, and we're all in this, so but thank you for completing on that. I'm just about there, other than to congratulate Councillor Whitehead on her nomination, but also just to mention on LGR, there's a lot of, you mentioned, Leader, that on the 20th at the extraordinary meeting, we will have the 5 options presented to us. Do we get to vote our preferred option and then that goes back to the Kent group or the Kent leaders group? Or is it simply that we're being prescribed what is happening? Because there is concern about a lack of opportunity for input, and I know that's a dangerous thing. But, I'll ask you that question because, as I say, there are dangerous consequences in this reorganisation that need addressing. For example, at the moment, an authority can convert to a directly elected leader. That right out of the Localism Act is being removed by the new legislation. Now, that's something that I think needs public consultation, because it's removing a public right to express their wishes.
When you're done.
Thank you, Chair. With which I'll hand it back over to the leader, for you're no doubt going to ask him for his response.
Thank you, Councillor Davies, very much. I apologise for interrupting, but I do want to go home.
And I apologise for...
Leader, would you like to respond?
Thank you, Chair. I'm not sure that Councillor Davies' response wasn't longer than my speech, but we'll allow that on this occasion. And just in terms of local government reorganisation, so the process is that this council, the Cabinet will make a decision. The decision will be informed by the views of Council, so Council will have the opportunity to debate it. I think we will share as much information as we can at as an earlier stage as we can. We don't at the moment have the business cases. That's something that's going to come to culmination around the end of October. So we'll advise on the process, but ultimately this Council will make a recommendation to the Secretary of State as part of the Kent process, whether it's the same as one made by other councillors or not, and then the Secretary of State will decide, and at that point there'll be a consultation on what the Secretary of State decides, and he may put forward 1 or 2 options, or he may just put forward 1. So it's a lovely complicated process. I just say to you, in terms of the PSPO, we need to understand the nature of law, and just getting in somebody else's KC isn't the solution to deciding what is lawful. In the end, what the law means can only be decided by a court. And that's the challenge we've got, because if you gather 2 or 3 KCs together, they will come to a different opinion. So I absolutely think we are wide open to having a discussion with the Free Speech Union. We will have a consultation, and this time, unlike last time, they can perhaps contribute to that consultation. Nothing to stop them doing that, and we'll be interested to see what they say. But we're not going to have what we do dictated by a bunch of people who don't come from here. We're going to look at what the people want locally. I know that there's somebody in the room who's listening very carefully to your point about the resident survey, because it's something we've been discussing today. And I know that Comms have got plans for this year's resident survey, which they hope will generate a higher response. And you're quite right, it's an exceptional response to the Ramsgate neighbourhood one, and I give credit to the regeneration team for that as well. They've done really well. One thing I will share with you about what happened last night at Hartsdown Leisure Centre is a little bit of anecdotal evidence. We failed, and we failed on one measure. We didn't have enough dog bowls. There were too many dogs, and that I know the team are going to take away and make sure next time we make proper provision for our canine friends.
Thank you. Councillor Austin, would you like to comment on or ask any questions on the Leader's report?
I would, please. Thank you. Thank you, Leader, for your report and for the advance information about or what you were hoping to talk about. It's been a while since our last meeting and a lot's happened. Might we suggest that meeting in September and November might be better than a long gap over the summer? Or even dare we suggest slotting in an extra meeting to keep business flowing and stop our meetings being as long as this one? Our thoughts too are with the Jewish community after the attack in Manchester and the Muslim community following the firebombing of Peacehaven Mosque. These shocking events arise from the politics of hate, with new statistics showing hate crimes on the rise, as we discussed earlier. Hate has no place in a civilised society, and we know it's up to all of us to challenge it. We were proud to be part of the recent Margate Loves event, which saw hundreds of people coming together to celebrate Thanet's diversity and inclusion. My thanks to Councillor Yates and fellow organisers of this inspiring and timely community gathering. From what I've read, Betty Rents would have loved being there. I never met her, but we clearly all owe her a debt of gratitude. I was struck by a family member's comment that she had a passion for challenging the status quo and effecting change through people power. Those of us in this corner of the chamber can certainly get behind that. We're delighted to see our long-awaited regeneration projects progressing and to hear of the new Pride in Place award. As a group that represents wards across the whole district, we obviously hope these funds will benefit residents across Thanet. Thank you for promising details of the decision-making process in due course. Needless to say, our Broadstairs colleagues have a site in mind that they'd love to see in community ownership through funding such as this. After the constructive discussion about the old Piermont Park depot at last week's cabinet meeting, we're puzzled that actions since don't seem to follow through what we thought had been agreed, and we'd welcome confirmation that community usage will be a major determining factor in its disposal. We very much welcome the planned meeting next week for Ramsgate councillors to discuss in detail the plan for neighbourhoods. At the risk of sounding churlish, though, we'd want to point out that a dedicated meeting is not a substitute for the early basic notifications that both protocol and common sense dictate members of this council should receive. We've been surprised to find information shared with community groups before it was shared with us, and to hear names of new board members gossiped about on the street before we were advised of them. We do appreciate the good intention of spending time with councillors talking through the details, but please, we do also need timely initial updates before we hear them from residents. We're very pleased to see the work being done to remove graffiti and improve our public realm, and grateful to officers and all the community groups who help. With new murals now appearing in Broadstairs and Westgate, we're hoping we can extend this initiative across the aisle too, and to our much graffitied BT and Virgin boxes and our public bins. Antisocial behaviour impacts all of us, particularly the most vulnerable, and it's extremely frustrating that the Free Streets Union has delayed the reintroduction of our PSPO. Everyone, from local businesses to holidaymakers, has been adversely affected by this over the summer, so we really hope it can be reinstated soon. It's good to see progress on parking, including the freehold of the Royal Harbour car park and the lifts finally being repaired. Talking with Access Thanet and with older residents, we know that opening the Broadstairs seafront lift all year and reopening the Ramsgate Eastcliff lift could both be hugely popular and welcome uses for that Pride of Place money. We'd like to thank officers for the prompt response that they made to the Hartsdown issue, and we're really pleased to hear that that has been addressed. Finally, we may disagree on other things, but we fully support this administration's efforts to increase the number of council homes in the district, provide temporary accommodation in Thanet, and improve the condition and livability of our housing. We warmly congratulate Councillor Whitehead on her award nomination and offer our thanks to her and our housing teams for their work. And we'd be delighted to discuss the Green Party's long-term aspiration to abolish landlords at another time and possibly in another place, possibly a hostelry. Thank you.
Leader, would you like to respond?
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Councillor Austin, for your comments. I mean, I note how few questions there were at the, on the agenda this evening, and I note that there isn't a huge amount of substantive business for us to conduct once we've finished this item, which doesn't suggest that the long gap in council reports between council meetings was necessarily such a problem, but you know, perhaps that's just a coincidence. In terms of what you said about Piermont Park, I think it's very important to understand that this council has to demonstrate best value. And one of the ways that we have to do that is to be transparent and open and to make it a level playing field for anybody who wants to acquire that site. So we will set out what the process is going to be, but I think we can't advantage individual organisations, whether that's Broadstairs Town Council or anybody else. And I understand that Broadstairs Town Council are anxious to see the site, but I think we have to offer an equal opportunity to anyone who's coming forward, and we can only do that once we've advertised the opportunity. I'd sort of take your point about the names of people in the on the neighbourhood board. One of the challenges we've got is that there's a process by which people are appointed, they're approached, you know, the agreement is sought, and in that process there can be some leakage of who they are. So I don't think there's been any attempt to conceal that. It's just not ideal. And in respect of the East Cliff lift, what I will say to you about that, and in particular about things in Ramsgate, is the car park lifts, the waterfall and the market are all back or coming, and the East Cliff lift is on my list. And before this Labour administration ends, it will be there.
Thank you. Okay, item 10, report of the Chair and overview and scrutiny panel.
Thank you, Chair.
One moment, please. Councillor Fellows, haven't finished speaking. One moment, please. Would members please refer to the supplementary agenda, the report and annexes included in the supplementary report, replace the ones published in the original agenda. Councillor Fellows.
Thank you, Chair. I'll keep it brief. Overview and scrutiny has continued to meet every month with some quite lengthy agendas with a varied range of topics and key decisions up for discussion. I'd like to thank all officers who come along to our meetings and take part, and also to the officers from Democratic Services. And also a big thank you to the members of the panel who make my role easier. Next meeting is scheduled for next Tuesday, the 14th of October, and as always, members of the Council are welcomed at scrutiny and they have the opportunity to speak on any agenda item. Next week we welcome Councillor Olban to scrutiny and his fan club.
What a fun day we will have.
Who will come and talk to us about how the council fared over the summer, keeping our towns clean for our visitors and residents alike. My full report is attached to this evening's agenda, and I'm happy to take any questions and comments. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Do councillors have any comments? Thank you. Annual Treasury Management Review 2024-2025. Councillor Everett, over to you.
Thank you, Chair. This report presents the Council's annual Treasury Management Review for 24-25, provides a comprehensive summary of our Treasury management activity and prudential and Treasury indicators for the past financial year. It details how the Council has managed its borrowing, investment and cash flows. Key highlights include an overview of our capital expenditure on long-term assets, which was £41.7 million. Our gross debt position at 31st March 2025 was £37.1 million, well within the statutory authorised limit of £154.5 million, and the Council's investment balance stood at £35.4 million at the year end. The report also outlines our compliance with regulatory requirements, including the SIPFA Code of Practice on Treasury Management and the SIPFA Prudential Code for Capital Finance in Local Authorities. It confirms all Treasury Managed reports have undergone prior scrutiny by the Governance and Audit Committee, and I move the recommendations in the report.
Thank you. Can I have a seconder, please? Councillor Alban, thank you. Any comments? Do councillors agree? Thank you very much. Item 12, revoking the First Homes interim policy statement. Councillor Whitehead, the floor is yours.
Again, I can be mercifully short. This report asks Council to formally revoke the First Homes interim policy statement that was adopted by Council on 14th of July 2022 in light of a change in the National Planning Policy Framework and the appropriateness of the interim policy statement for housing in Thanet. The recommendation is that the Council revokes the First Homes interim policy statement with immediate effect, and I move the recommendation set out in the report.
Thank you. Can I have a seconder, please? Councillor Bright, thank you. Do we have any comments? Thank you very much. Do councillors agree then? Yes, you do. Thank you. Item 13, Birchington Parish Council. At this point, I'd just like to acknowledge the 2 or maybe 3 gentlemen in the public gallery. I believe this item is of particular interest to you, and I thank you for your patience. You've been very, very patient waiting there, and so Birchington Parish Council it is, and I'm going to give the floor to Councillor Everett.
Thank you, Chair. As we know, this report seeks a decision from full council in relation to the exercise of discretion under Section 39(4) Representation of the People Act 1983, which allows the council to exercise its discretion to call an election in circumstances such as those described in this report. I think we all know that these are unhappy circumstances, and I have every sympathy for Birchington Parish councillors who would prefer that we did something different from the recommendation which is before us. Unfortunately, the legal advice that we received is that we in fact have no discretion and that we have to do what we're advised to do by officers. This is something which does happen at council from time to time, as some of you who've been here for a long while will know, and it is regrettable, but council is asked to consider the circumstances set out in the report and agree to exercise its discretionary power under Section 39(4)A of the Representation of the People Act 1983 to call an election for all seats in the ward Birchington North and all seats in the ward Birchington South, and to agree that all further decisions pertaining to arrangements in connection with this election be delegated to the Chief Executive, and I so move.
Thank you. Can I have a seconder, please? Councillor Alban, thank you. Now, this item may be debated. Does anybody have any comments? Councillor Cupp.
Thank you, Chair. I will try and keep this short. I would like to say that this is something that is very sad. Birchington Parish Council are a very good and fantastic parish council. They do a lot of hard work for the community, but as much as it would make sense to carry on as they are, I am not a lawyer and I cannot argue against the legal advice that this council has been given, and as such it is only right that we follow that legal advice, and I hope that Birchington carries on being served to the best of its ability after the election takes place. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Davis.
Thank you, Chair. Just to reiterate, yes, it is a position nobody really wanted to be in and would like to be in, but I do know that the advice that was taken, and from the Electoral Commission and everything, was quite straightforward. But I wanted to just highlight the excellent report that was brought to us, because I'd mentioned this in a previous meeting, but this report explains very concisely and clearly why there is no option on this, and I just wanted to recognise the Chief Exec and the monitoring officer's work on that, because it is a complex thing, but it actually makes sense in the report, so, and allows us to, you know, to understand why we may not have a choice in the decision, but if we've got to put a name to a decision, it's good to know the rationale behind it. So I'd just like to recognise the excellent report. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? Then I have to ask the question, do councillors agree? Agree. Thank you. Item 14, committees, panels and boards. Sorry, that's a word at the end of the sentence. Committees, panels and boards proportionality. I call upon the leader to make a proposal in respect of the options as outlined in the report. Is there a seconder, please?
No, not yet. He just needs it. He hasn't moved it yet.
I'd like to move option 2, please, Chair.
Does any councillor wish to propose an alternative option? Councillor Davis. Seconder for that, please. Councillor Austin.
Sorry, really sorry. I want to go home as much as everyone. But is it possible to put forward an alternative option to the 2 options that have been put forward, or are we bound to consider the 2 options that have been put forward? That have been proposed, you know. Huh? Oh, a little bit, Councillor Scovey. I'll impress you in a minute.
He's good at it.
Okay, here's the news. Yes, we can. In fact, if we did, we would have to have an adjournment to work out the whys and wherefores. So the choice is yours.
I'm known for my speed, Chair. We can sort out the numbers for an alternative option. I think we can sort out the numbers for an alternative option, a third option, relatively quickly. Thank you, Councillor Alban, for that interjection. So I would like to propose that. I would like to propose a third option. I'm happy to come to the front and bring forward some numbers for that.
Okay, we have to adjourn, I'm afraid. Okay, come to the front, please. Approach the bench. Okay. Councillors, we're back. Firstly, I have to formally ask, Councillor Pugh, are you withdrawing your suggestion that you're going to bring a little extra something to the table?
I am, Chair. I'd like to thank officers for indulging me for a second, but I would, for a few minutes, I've come to the better judgment that I'd actually like to go home.
And you will, sir, but not quite yet. So we have option 1 and option 2 on the table. So we're going to take a vote. Firstly, on... Why are you talking? Shh. Option 1, please. If you're in favour of option 1, please raise any hand you like.
1, 2, only one.
17? Okay.
And if you, thank you, and if you prefer option 2, please raise any hand you like. Thank you. Option 2 has been agreed. Option 2. Nomination of members to serve on committees. Group leaders may wish to take this opportunity to advise of changes to their nominations to committees, panels and boards for the remainder of 2025-26. Councillor Everett, do you wish to advise of any nomination changes?
Well, I believe the Democratic Services have already got a list, but I'm happy to read it out if you want me to. Yeah. So Councillor Packman's come off overview and scrutiny, Councillor Keane's come off planning, Councillor Makinson's come off licensing, and Councillor Harry Scobie to come off governance and audit.
Thank you. Councillor Davis, do you wish to advise of any nomination changes?
None myself. I'm just saying, me. Hang on. It's all right. I've got... I felt like Action Man then. Other than myself, to be added to the local plan CAG, please, which I believe was the suggestion that had been made.
Thank you. Councillor Austin, do you wish to advise of any nomination changes?
Yes, please. We'd like to add Councillor Garner to licensing, and Councillor Garner will give up his place on governance and audit, which Councillor Yates will take up, please. Thank you.
Thank you. You'll be very pleased to know that concludes the business of the council.